All right. James O'Keefe has just walked in, and we clicked live as soon as we heard you were outside. So now you sit down right here, and you're good to go.
I may have to pee.
No, not allowed. No bathroom breaks.
Maybe we'll get started and then I'll pee.
No, go run to the bathroom. It's no big deal.
Okay.
Bathroom straight.
We're
to
hanging
the,
out. We'll
to
get
the right
we'll
over
get
there.
the show.
Okay.
We'll get the show going.
All right.
First room on the
Nice
right.
to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
We're hanging out. It's an early. Welcome to the Culture War. It's an early day. Today is the big Miami show. So after this, we're going to be going to our elite members meetup, and then of course we have the Miami event at 6 p.m. It's going to be all night. It's going to be amazing. Matt Gaetz will be here with us, and it's an honor. We're going to be talking a lot about the fight that he's had in Congress. But today, there's a lot of information pertaining to Project Veritas that I think is really interesting. I saw a video that James had put out about $8 million in the Veritas accounts that is seemingly gone, the resignation of their CFO. And so James is going to be joining us. James will also, of course, be at the event tonight in Miami. And I'm really interested to hear about what the deal is. What's the deal with what happened with Project Veritas, as well as the current things that James is working on. And we'll talk about the state of media. And that's why we have Rudkowski joining us as well.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that with all the high-profile people who say the establishment should be questioned, all getting taken down around the same time, I think it's not a coincidence. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to learn and to see what was happening behind the scenes, because as we always know, there's a public story and then there's their story of what they're allowed to say. There's lawyers, there's legal fees. There's a lot of things that you look at what's happening right now in our media sphere, and you kind of got to wonder, why are so many people under such tough scrutiny when you look at the federal government and what they're doing? They're getting away with way much horrible behavior that definitely deserves to be scrutinized, but never is. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. If you want to follow me, check me out on youtube.com/wearechange. I release videos there almost every single day. I've been doing this for 18, 19 years now, way too long. I think me and James started to, release videos around the same time as well. I remember hearing about him. We interviewed each other throughout the years. We actually did projects with each other throughout the years. And it's crazy. I mean, I've been working with you for like
Since Occupy.
Since Occupy
Yeah.
Wall Street. What year was that? That's 11
2011.
years. Yeah, that's
12
years now. James, I've known in the industry for a very long time, so we are very old boomers on our way out with
Millennials.
with the diapers on, and we've been around for a long time. So you're going to hear a lot of wisdom from the elders today.
I love how
about what's
boomer
really
just
going on.
means you're like old now.
Yes.
When boomer literally refers to a generation of people.
See, I had no idea.
No, but this will be good. Luke and James have both been on the outside of the journalism industry, doing journalism though, and having a massive impact. I remember, this was like 11 years ago, that you confronted, who is it, Charlie Gibbs, Peter King?
All of them.
And then this made this like massive national story where they were all basically defending Obama having executed an American citizens, plural, and they were like, too bad.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff you don't get from the corporate press and the mainstream press. And obviously now, what I find fascinating is we're all on, like YouTube and Twitter and all these different platforms when these things are going down with the Obama administration. You've got Ron Paul calling this stuff out. We're all outside looking in, and now it's starting to invert. Now it's starting to change, and the biggest stories are coming from people who are outside of the corporate journalism, and now corporate journalism is basically just a bunch of garbage.
Yep.
James.
Hey.
Welcome. We're just talking about, Luke was talking about how he got started, how long he's been producing videos, and I was.
We're old, man.
Yeah, boomers. That's what Luke looks at. You're as soon as you hit 40, you're a boomer. I don't think anyone here is 40 though.
I got 1 year until then.
One more year. So, James, what's going on?
Oh, look, the doggy. Oh, it's Biden's dog, right? The German Shepherd.
No. The opposite of Biden's dog.
opposite
This one's
of Biden.
well trained and well behaved.
Oh. Well, great to be here.
Yeah, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What isn't? I got sued again. I get sued. I sent you that clip. I get sued so much, so dealing with that.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about.
Well, yeah. Where do you want to start? You want to talk about I don't know how much you can talk about with Project Veritas, but my understanding is they're gone.
I guess so. I mean, I saw the headline in the video I sent you. There's like 30 lawyers now glommed onto a lawsuit against me from years ago. See, Tim, when I was there, I got sued personally for the journalism that was done, which is fine. I'm the leader. I'm happy to take the arrows. But journalism that not necessarily I did. I was the leader, but my journalist didn't get sued. The people who handled the sources, I got sued.
Yeah.
So there was that foundation that was there to defend and pay for all of that. So now that's apparently gone. Now I have to defend, and I just posted this thing this week. It's a pretty fascinating, detailed summary of what's going on. And someone sent me an email from the outgoing chief financial officer of Veritas stating, quote, walling off funds to sue O'Keefe at the expense of PV is an example of putting personal vindication against the best interest of the organization, which is remarkable. When I was removed, they had about maybe $8 million cash. They spent all of it in 6 months. Wow. I don't know what spent. I don't know. My lawyer supports a full forensic audit of that.
So when all this was going down, and they ousted you or whatever it was, and then you get this letter that comes out saying James did these horrible things, but then it also says we actually didn't witness him do any of these things. We're just signing the letter anyway. One of the, I've worked at nonprofits before, and my assumption was, and again, I'm going to say this knowing I don't know how much you can say considering they're
I'm pretty transparent. I'm not ashamed of it. When people always say, "Can you say something?" It's predicated on the fact you've done something wrong. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, I think
my biggest, and I will talk about my biggest thing I really want to talk about is the citizen journalism, because you're here, and I want to get his thoughts on training citizen journalists, as in light of what Elon has talked about. But we'll get there. So
I think I said this before. I think that someone was basically trying to steal money. That one of the biggest obstacles to extracting resources is going to be an idealistic founder who has a vision and is protecting what the organization is supposed to be doing. And I've seen this before with other companies. Someone gets brought in, and they get dollar signs in the eyes. They're like, "Look at this! Look, $8 million in the bank, $10 million in the bank.
Yeah.
How do I get that? How do I get money for myself?
I think that's right.
The guy who founded it is idealistic and won't let me touch it. Let's get rid of him."
I think that's exactly what I talked about in your show last time, which is sort of the idea of when and you were there in the beginning, like the garage phase. Luke, you came over, and it was very humble beginnings. I mean, it still is. I mean, I'm rebuilding now. But it's like they take a backwards looking focus and say, why is James taking all these risks in the first place? I can do it better. I can do it better than him. That's just human nature. It's just what people do. And they look at these numbers, and whenever we get a check, I never celebrate when we get checks. And sometimes people will be like, wow, and they hold, human, oh, wow, $500,000. I'm like, do you have any idea? I actually would say this at the water cooler. Do you have any idea how much blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, FBI raids, time in hotel rooms away from loved ones? People don't think about it that way. Yep. All they see is, oh, look, the 990 says they have a $20 million budget, $6 million on lawyers. So, I mean, listen, I've talked about this a lot. I'm happy to talk about it again. I think the thing I've learned is really human nature. I'm 39 years old, and I've generally, throughout my life, believed in the best in people. And I've recently learned that, human nature is pretty wicked, and most people are shit, to be honest with you. But there's goodness in people.
I think it's a yin yang, man. I think there's light and there's dark, there's good and there's bad, and you just got to be careful about the bad people because they'll pretend to be good. But to your point,
especially in politics.
Oh, no question.
In media attracts a lot of narcissists, and I'm an artistic soul. I believe I'm a journalistic person. I tell stories, and that's what gets me going. But most of the people in this business are attracted to glomming on to fame and whatever their perception is about fortune and fame and image and that's just a toxic thing.
Thanks for the morning black pill there, James. Let me take this one down. Hold on.
After everything that happened, I don't blame you. I just think you've run into some demons. You know what I mean?
Well, when you get to what happens when you get to the truth? What happens when you really get to the truth? What happens when you're so over the target? You're dropping video journalistic bombs. I mean, right over the target. We're looking at that video of the vice president of Pfizer there. I mean, when the FBI points guns at me and stuff like that. When you are so over the truth, you will bring out the demons.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're exposing, the child trafficking operations that is being run with your tax dollars and protected by, the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Yeah, then you get into, people who are angry that you're dropping these bombs, that you're exposing a lot of what they're doing behind the scenes. But I really wanted to kind of hone in and focus a little bit because I've been through a very similar situation that you have been a couple years ago, where I lost my organization. I had all my resources taken away from me. I was defamed. I was attacked. I pretty much lost everything, and I had to rebuild brand new again and again. But I wanted to, we could get into this later or maybe now, the specific lessons you learned throughout your trials, because there's a lot of other people who have companies, there's a lot of other people who have organizations who are trying to do good. I kind of wanted to learn your learning lesson, other than, dealing with sociopaths, which there's a lot of, especially in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., by the way, there's more sociopaths per capita than anywhere else in the world. So for some reason, that occult symbolic place that has a lot of Freemasonic streets and numbers and statues and streets keeps aggregating some of just the worst human beings on the planet. Has to be a
Demons.
coincidence. But I don't know if we want to get into this now. But I would
It kind of
I wouldn't want
relates to
learn
everything.
because what happened to me happened a long time ago. What happened to you happened now. What's the latest
Was
kind of
that
COINTELPRO?
organization We Are Change? Or
No,
which-
it was
different?
another organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the question. I feel like I could write a Shakespearean novel in 3 parts. It's part of the challenge. I think the bottom line up front is what I've learned is you really have to surround yourself with really good people. And I know that's a cliche and we all hear it, but I think I did taking accountability for my, I think I did a poor job of selecting people. And sometimes things aren't what they seem, which is ironic because I'm an undercover journalist for a living. But
You got to undercover sting your own employees, huh?
no, I think you just have to find people who are incredibly strong. I mean, and have good character, and are not for sale. And I don't have any evidence of someone like taking a bribe. That's not what I mean. It could be the case. I just mean like you have to find people who are willing to go to war with you. And if you're in jail, they have to be willing to go to jail with you, not because you've done anything illegal. And what is their price? What is your price? That's the question I really have to ask is what's your price? Because if your price is $30 million, then someone will give you $30 million to sell out your cause. You really have to believe. And the irony is everyone will say they believe. Of course, I believe, but that doesn't mean anything. So I think the lesson is surround yourself with good people. This thing here you're looking at, just to give you a window into my week, because I think it's on point. I was sued I did this story on a postal worker in 2020 who claimed he overheard his supervisor backdating ballots. You may remember this story.
Oh, yeah.
And I get sued, and then the word Trump is mentioned in this lawsuit 198 times. My name's mentioned about 200 times. And there's all these lawyers from Protect Democracy, which is a $50 million nonprofit, white shoe law firms, and they're all suing me personally. So it's I said to you last time, getting arrows I'm getting arrows from all sides, and I think that's just where we are as a country right now.
And then they come at your back.
And I called that guy for comment. It's like I did the journalistic thing that I'm supposed to do, which is he goes on the record, and then I call up the supervisor. Hey, what do you think? He's like, I'm not going to talk to reporters like you. He hangs up the phone. I put that in the piece, and I published the story. Now, what's ironic about this is that the people who are suing me have all written white papers saying that the actual malice standard for defamation needs to be higher. So they're arguing against their own lawsuit. I think
Higher?
I think, yeah.
It's already damn near impossible.
I know. So the true story, Luke, is I think just finding good people is in this business is hard.
You mentioned, what's your number if it's $30 million, and I'm wondering if the old trope or narrative is that you get a guy who's fighting this big fight, and he's going on his show, he's going on YouTube, he's doing journalism, and then one day there's a knock on the door, and someone walks up and says, "We got a really great job for you at CNN, $10 million a year." How does that sound?
Oliver Darcy is an example.
Oh,
of that.
perfect example. That guy is
foil.
evil.
Perfect. He used to work for a conservative group called the Leadership Institute, where I worked. and you could see his whole thing change. People want money. It's about money. It's about power. It's about fame. And by the way, I believe black pill thing. I'm still an optimist. I still believe in the truth. I just think it's getting pretty scary out there.
Yes, and throughout my years, because I think we've been in the business about the same time. I think right now we're reaching a time where it's really more dangerous than it ever has been kind of before, especially when it comes to journalism, especially when it comes to reporting, especially when it comes to just kind of speaking the truth in the face of all this power. But to continue this conversation, did you develop any kind of tips or tricks to see if someone is a good person?
Discern?
Some people say eye contact. Are there any?
There's a few things you can do. The first thing you do is hold up a mirror to them, and if there's no reflection, right, red flag.
Do you have holy water, garlic? What do you got here? You don't have to tell us if it's insider.
There's nothing.
Secret.
There's nothing secret about. I mean,
but is there something in common with all the people who backstabbed you? Then comparatively to the people who were there that you saw signs early on.
I mean, I did a live stream on Friday on Instagram, just a little fundraiser for my lawyer bills. It's one of the great ironies and tragedies of my life is that I had to raise and spend $6 million a year on lawyers, and now that foundation's completely gone, and they're gunning for me. So I did this fundraiser, and I'm still getting texts from these people, and I know that they're watching. They're obsessively watching everything I do, Tim. Right, even probably right now. And one of them texted me. One of them said, "I want you to commit suicide."
Whoa.
Yeah.
Was a former Project Veritas guy?
Yeah, board member.
Wow.
So I don't want to get too spiritual here because I want to get into the First Amendment stuff, but like
for sure.
it's deep. It cuts deep, and a lot of times people project their own. When you get over the truth, it almost seems like you hold a mirror up to people and they don't like what they see. And they have problems with themselves, and it's psychological. It's probably spiritual. I never thought that I would be in that dimension. I know that you are. I never thought that I'm a First Amendment guy who likes to show people reality. I never thought I'd be in a psychological, but here we are with, you want to commit suicide. It was also very Maoist, Tim, very communist. It's like he takes a black car. I mean, it's like, well, that's because the chief executive officer has to raise $75,000 a day, and you want me to be in an Uber carpool? I mean, what exactly? And then you begin to realize,
you want me to take the bus?
But they do. And then you realize, this is it was a very Maoist sort of communist approach. I say, well, why are right wingers behaving like communists? So
they're actually communists. Statists. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I had this philosophical point of my life. I'm like, there's no good and evil. There's just competing interests. Everyone thinks they're doing the right thing. And boy, was that naive. I remember having these conversations when I was in early 20s, and I'm just like, well, look, these people think they're doing the right thing for them, and these people think they're doing the right thing for them. And then you get older, and you meet demons. I mean that figuratively, but some people might mean it literally. You meet people where you're just flabbergasted at how evil they can be. Mm-hmm. And I'm left bewildered because I'm like, the actions you have taken do not financially benefit you. They are just chaos, destruction, and causing suffering. And, so I've been backstabbed by some people, and it blows my effing mind. Mm-hmm. I'm like, for what reason did you do this? And so what I find truly fascinating is there's this trope about these video games where you're able to choose like a karmic path. So a lot of the role-playing games that come out on PlayStation or PC, you can choose the evil route or the good route. And there are people who are always posting online about how it's so difficult to play an evil character. And what I find with these games is there doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason to the evil path in a storyline. And then I think, and I think about it now, and I'm like, yeah, why would you want to do that in that game? But then you meet these people who, for seemingly no reason, will burn things down, destroy, and smile as they harm people. And you're like, now I get it.
Yeah, I had that done to me by someone who I thought was my best friend in the industry many, many years ago. But, I've been talking about, demons and these entities for a very long time. And everyone's like, you're being sensationalistic. You're being outrageous. You're being crazy here. No, I'm not. There is a larger energetic spiritual warfare out there. I think it's becoming more apparent. I think some people have been just aware of it a little bit longer. But when you look into your kind of intuition, when you look into your gut, when you see what's happening, when you experience the things you experience, especially in this movement, there's no denying that there's something greater out there, energetic out there, that is a larger fight between good and evil. That's how I interpret it. That's how I see it. And it is demons versus...
It changes you when you're raided by the feds, and I said
Exactly.
it's like those agents in my apartment. There were like 10 of them, and I think half of them were probably just doing a job, and it just totally changes you because you go, whoa, human nature. I mean, the pension and the paycheck, and even in my organization, I found the paycheck. It was all about the pay. Well, I'm gonna go along with this because there's still until the money ran out.
Yep.
But anyway, I have a lot of positive, optimistic things to say. We'll get there here in a
Yeah,
moment.
we will.
But
So I'll just say one final thing. Like I had a friend that I used to skate with a lot back when I was a teenager, and then in the past couple of years, excuse me, all of a sudden this person is going on social media and just making everything they can make up. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, I'd go to this guy's house, we'd order pizza, we'd watch skate videos, we hang out every day, we'd jam and play music together. And now this person, like, just all of a sudden, they're possessed. It's the craziest
what
thing.
do you think the reason was?
I think perhaps some people have always been evil. We just didn't see it. Because when the person had nothing to leech off of you and nothing to destroy, you were just there. And so it's easy for me to sit on a couch and watch music videos and play video games with a demon because the demon says, I have nothing, there is no pleasure, there's no joy, this person is insignificant. Then you come into success, you start working hard, and now they're like, now's my chance, something to burn, something to destroy.
So really quick anecdote. So the missing piece here is when the Pfizer story broke, what was told to me, people were calling me, and people thought that someone took a bribe. I don't know that. I don't have any evidence of that. But what I do have evidence is of this. They say, James O'Keefe has nothing to do with the success of this story and nothing to do with the success of this company. That's what was said to people, which is crazy because I said, well, I'm in the video. I said, well, but you're not the one who secretly recorded the guy. I was like, well, but I recruited the guy who did. I'm the leader of the.
It's communism.
I'm the leader of the firm. I'm taking all the risks. I'm raising all the money. I actually think a lot of people didn't. Some of the people, not all of them, half people didn't realize just all that I was doing and responsible for. Because and that's how it works in a Bolshevik Maoist sense. They just think this guy on the top, and you see it with AOC, and Bezos can't have a helipad in New York City.
Right.
How do you expect me to raise all the money, to pay all the lawyers, and make sure you have food for your families, unless I'm running around the country getting the money? Where do you think the money comes from?
Well, here's the here's the open window, I suppose, with the closed door. While I certainly think it's kind of crazy that what happened to Project Veritas, it does create that beautiful example of why communism doesn't work. The people who are saying James has nothing to do with this, and then they lit $8 million on fire.
Yeah, I want to know what happened to that money. That was hard earned. I wasn't traveling around in cars for my health. I would rather go be at home in the evening or do my journalism. But I was doing that to indemnify these journalists, right? What does that mean? For those of you who don't, indemnify means I was raising all this money so that I could make sure that they were protected. Spencer and Eric were raided by the FBI, and it costs a lot of money. And the first thing that I thought is, how are we going to pay these lawyers when I'm gone? I mean, we need to stick together. And they burn through it all. But I do think it's a blessing in a way. God sort of saying there's a different way, a different path. You, Tim, said they liberated me to pursue a different kind of mission and a different kind of vision, because I do think the model of infiltrating with 20 full-time undercover journalists is not a sustainable or long-term viable path. I think, like Elon has tweeted this out, I think we need to empower, and what Luke has done, train, educate people, educate citizen journalists, so that there's thousands of them, not all on my payroll. I think that's a help. And I also think people need skin in the game. Tim, every day people say to me, well, I got this problem. Can you help me? And I'm finding that, yes, I'm giving a lot of my time, but a lot of them won't actually do it. They need to buy into a course, buy a camera, right? I'm sure you've seen this in your life.
It's not just on your payroll. It's also your liability. So you left your organization where someone could come in and sabotage and do bad stuff to it. And I remember when I lost my organization originally was canvassing, hitting the streets, giving out flyers, giving out DVDs, talking to people in the streets, and then I lost it all. There was a big battle, very similar to what you went through. And I'm like, why? I can't believe I lost all these resources and all these things. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? I started to make videos. I wouldn't have started to make videos if I didn't lose my canvassing organization, my organization that reached out to people and talked to people and did all the little stuff that's irrelevant right now and doesn't work as well as video production. So I think, looking back at a lot of the problems within the organizations that I was involved in, when I see what happened, I felt not only more liberated, but on a better path afterwards, even though I didn't understand when it was happening in the first place. But because I was just like, whatever, I just got to keep doing something else. That something else was way better, way more effective, and something that worked, in such a more cohesive way than what I was doing previously before, which was wrong, but I didn't know it was wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's the way that I always try to see these things. I also do believe demonic possession is real. There are individuals that are hijacked, that are open to other entities. There's a reason Abrina Abrovimich tries to call in demons with spirit cooking. There's a reason a lot of these people have a cult, Abrina Abrovimich.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Marina Abrovimich.
You said Abrina. Yeah. I was like, wait.
Abrina, Marina, but there's a reason there's a lot of occult rituals and sacrifices and rituals that a lot of these people do, and it's not an accident.
I mean, I gotta say, I don't know about all that, but I can tell you, I've had experiences in my life where it's like someone was possessed. It's like someone and trust, and then one day they're evil, and I'm just like, what happened?
Their eyes change, their voice changes, everything just changes about them in a second, and then they're literally just trying to say things and to try to anger you as much as they can.
What kind of freaks me out is, like, if that's true, then the story would be your good friend became possessed, and all they needed was an exorcism to be restored. Instead, they're thrust off to the darkness and lost forever.
It's
crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a hard one because
like, what do you do? Take your friend to a secret exorcism intervention?
I think it's just this is a really important. The conversation we're having right now is the issue. I think the deeper we go, the more on target I am, you are, the more like the people around you have to be like, it's almost like they have to be disciples. And I hesitate to use that word, but you have to find people who are just absolutely bonded, like blood brothers, and loyal to a cause and loyal to each other. But what I've found is that when you're really, really, really effective and over the target, the incentive to, for lack of a better word, betray you or to sell out or to give you up, it's almost like, there's no, unless you're really truly driven by the mission, you're going to just sell out. You're look at Oliver Darcy. I mean, look at what happened to that man. It's pathetic, right? He working for CNN, working for the state. He's a journalist, and he gave up his soul.
He got recruited.
But that's what they do to people.
Yeah.
And it's hard to build things. It's easy. You mentioned to destroy. Very easy to destroy something. Very hard to build. So Luke's, your question is a really good one. I'm still figuring that out. How do you discern in people? Yeah. I think it's something you look at their resume. If they've done something remarkable in their life, something if they built something, do they have the right core values? But it's hard because you have to kind of go through it with them to figure out. Even this process I've been through has been a cleansing process. I've been able to identify who the real people are and who the real people aren't. You have to go through it.
It is crazy to experience. There are some people that are, I made the mirror joke because they're vampires, figuratively. They don't want to build stuff. They don't want to make stuff. They want to extract. They want to just take things. They don't want to work. They want power. They want control. And if you think about it, I think about these things for a lot of these individuals. What is it? Is it the money? And it's not really the money, because what does money mean? What they want is power over other people. They want to be able to cause pain and control and assert. And that's a crazy thing. But I think what you're describing and this phenomena we're describing of whether it's demons or whatever, it's a larger component of the culture war. If you look at what the left is and what they do, Oliver Darcy is a good example. He's a guy who interviewed me in 2018 about censorship on Twitter. At the time, it was Twitter. And my point was, if they start saying alt-right must be banned, white nationalists can't speak, then you are creating the process by which you start excising political opinions that run afoul. I mean, it's Fahrenheit 451. He interviews me about that. He runs a story about that for Business Insider. If you look where he is now, CNN, lying, posting misleading and out of context statements to manipulate the public, he's chosen the destruction of everyone else for personal benefit to be a part of this machine. And what he does is a larger component of what we are up against in the culture war.
That's right. That's
so
exactly
you,
right.
you take 1,000 Oliver Darcys, you now have
That's right.
modern uniparty, modern Democrats, even corrupt Republicans. You have the woke, you have the ESG, and that's exactly what it is.
And people in the conservative movement. I mean, it's everywhere. It's all around us. It's human nature. That's what we're. I think that's what I'm trying to say is that I'm a First Amendment guy, but I've learned that now it's human. It's psychological. It's spiritual. It's human nature. But it gets right to the point of what is the solution, and the solution is what Elon has been tweeting about: citizen journalism and training and equipping, which is the future for OMG, which is we're hosting our first paid webinar next week. We've had a few hundred people buy this 5-course thing that I developed. And I found that it's more sustainable and healthier when I put it back on the citizen. Because again, people come to me, please, I'm a therapist, Tim, all day long. People complain to me about their problems. Can you come to Kansas? Can you come to Hawaii? I went to Maui for a week to expose it. Just nonstop. And I find that it's almost like, gee, 98% of these people aren't actually going to do anything. They need to make themselves feel better by complaining to me.
Yes. Because
then they feel like, well, Jamie James will do something. And by the way, I'm happy to do it. But my time is valuable. I can't spend 10 hours a day on the phone listening to you bitch about the problems in the world.
You had that post on Twitter, on X, and Instagram where you said something to the effect of, if you are aware of the problems and you do nothing, then you are responsible for the future your children inherit.
Yes.
Something to that effect.
Yes.
I guess I made it a little bit more poignant, but inspired by what you said. I said, do you really want your kids to live in the pod and eat the bugs? Because all these people come out and be like, I can't do anything because, I've got to risk my family and things like that. And I'm like, I totally get it. There's the immediate dangers, and I'm not going to pretend to know what that's like. Just I hope you understand. You can protect your kids today, but by doing nothing, they will be living in pods and eating bugs.
Very well said. Yeah, I have this conversation all the time where it's well, I have children, and I don't have children, so there's a part of me that doesn't fully understand, because I'm sure that when I become a father, maybe I'll feel differently. And I also had a conversation yesterday with a source who said, well, maybe it's best not to bring children into this world, and that's what Solzhenitsyn wrote in Gulag Archipelago. You have to decide whether or not because it's unfair to your children, and I believe creating life is always a good thing, regardless of where we're headed in society. But you must create life. But yeah, that's well said. It's like, if you do nothing, then what are you doing for your children? And but a lot of people don't really fully, truly care about the evil until it hits them, until it happens to them, until it literally hits their skull. They don't understand, because they haven't been through what I've been through. They haven't seen what I've seen. Jail and FBI raid, take your stuff at gunpoint, have people around you sell you out for some other evil reason. But listen, the future is equipping and training. And I want to ask you about when you did your.
I still have it. I still have my course. Yeah.
And what have you found works with citizen journalists when you're training them and equipping them?
I trained a lot of people throughout the years. Before getting into this topic, though, I kind of want to expand a little bit about what you originally said, because it is true. Once you are affected by this, and you're dealing in a situation where you're being interrogated, or you're having a literal fist or a boot on your face, when you're going through an injustice, then it all hits you. I remember being a young child, dealing with some of this injustices that led me to where I am here today. But I think we're slowly encroaching a place where a lot of people and their effects of the system on them is becoming so apparent that everyone's being affected by this. And it's absolutely tragic where we are seeing such horrible situations with everyone's health, everyone's financial situation. Those situations will only get worse the more we acquiesce, the more we comply, the more we bend over, the more we say, hey, let someone else do it. Let someone else take care of this problem. I'm just going to go along with it, because if I put my head down, I'm going to be okay, and you will not. They will be roasting your buttocks. They will be having their way with you sooner
Your
or
kids.
later, and more importantly,
but
not
it's-
just you. You're the future
It's-
of your
but it's-
lineage.
But I don't even think, for the most part, it is you. I think that, we talk about Neuralink, we talk about the future. They got these Amazon stores already at DCA Airport where you scan your palm and then it lets you in. You can take whatever you want and walk right out. All that stuff is coming. And you have the luxury right now to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to scan my palm. But your children will. Your children will walk into the store and it'll say, denied, social credit score too low.
Yeah,
And so when people say today, I'll put it this way. I always use the fire analogy. You got a big house and there's a small grease fire on your stove. And what's happening is people are like, well, look, it's a small fire. I think I'm fine. I'm sitting here playing video games. I think it'll be okay. And then an hour later, now the fire's hit the cabinets and you're like, it's still only in the kitchen. And then you're older and you're like, well, I lived a good life. Your whole house is burnt down. And you're like, here you go, kids. Here are the keys. And you throw them the keys to a smoldering pile of rubble.
Yeah. But to unwind that citizen journalism aspect here, I do believe it is absolutely critical at this juncture, because if you look at what's happening to Tucker Carlson, if you look at what's happening to Elon Musk, if you look at what's happening to Alex Jones, if you look at what's happening to James O'Keefe,
Russell Brand,
everyone out there who is making a stand against this is being targeted, being attacked in many underhanded
and
ways.
to deter people from doing it. I mean,
Exactly.
they want to look at my face and say, how is James doing? Is he healthy? Is he scared? They need to send a message.
Exactly.
I was asked to speak. I tweeted this out to a retired community of FBI agents recently. These are guys probably in their 60s and 70s, and I talked to the person who invited me, and I said, would they have executed a search warrant, like these no-knock warrants against journalists? Would they have done that? And they didn't really give me a full answer. So the pension, the paycheck, the pension and the paycheck is something that I'm fighting against. And the mortgage, people have mortgages. And I think we're entering a time in our world where people have to, is the material world that important to them? Or is the truth important to them? And the truth and is so we have to figure out a way to inspire people to take action and to make sacrifices. And there are people out there who say, well, they don't exist. No, well, I think the people I'm talking to every day, a lot of good people in the world, but they have kids, they have mortgages, they may not be able to do it. But if we create like a pipeline, a talent pipeline,
Exactly.
where we put these classes out there, and a few hundred people have bought them, and they've bought my cameras,
And we teach them.
We teach them. Then there's actually
Teach
skin
them
in the game.
and guide them, but more importantly, allow individuals to go after the system in many unorganized ways where it's not coordinated by us, but when an injustice happens, they're able to call it out, be on the front lines, and then step back instead of just having everyone continually on the front lines. And you gave me chills just really quickly here because of what you said. Perfectly describes my situation when I was at Bilderberg with the White House press corps, getting drunk and hammered with them 4 o'clock in the morning because I was talking to, the conversations were off the record, and I won't be naming the exact names of who I was talking to, but the biggest people in the industry, and they were telling me the same exact thing. I have mortgages. I got to pay rent. I got to pay my bills. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And they were like, it's all a lie. We lie all the time. It's all a scam. We know. We're just doing this because we need to get by. And I'm like, holy frickin'
Do you guys
hell.
know what mortgage means? Do you know the etymology of the word mortgage? Do you know what mortis?
It has to deal with death.
It means death pledge. Mortgage.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Mortis.
I did not know that. I didn't know that.
Death pledge. Isn't that something?
It is a very powerful tool. And if you have a partner, does your partner align with your values? Like a lot of my sources, Tim, they might be willing to do it. But what about their wife or their husband? I've had situations where someone is absolutely willing to jump on the proverbial grenade, so to speak, but their partner isn't supportive, or they have a mortgage, or they have children. But we need to instill courage. People need to be amongst a community. And I think that they look up to me in the sense that they think, well, James is doing this. But I think knowledge is power. people, I mean, being journalism, it's not, I mean, especially if you're using recording devices, right? They need to understand the laws, how to use the equipment, the methods, ethics. There has to be boundaries. You know, we almost like a journalism. I don't even know what journalism school teaches these days, but nothing.
Correct. I got kicked out of my journalism school.
What do they teach? Politics?
They teach you how to do the AP style guide, which essentially means following people's pronouns now, not misgendering people, and just literally regurgitating press releases. That's all they teach you right now.
That's not helpful. So I think it would be very empowering to people if they actually were taught real journalism and how to do it. Because that's power. That'll give them confidence. And then a community of like-minded people. That's basically what OMG is endeavoring to do.
You know what's crazy to me when I got started, actually, you know, I'm at Occupy Wall Street. I was doing more hacker stuff, activism stuff related to data and things like that, social engineering. And I go down, I meet Luke at Occupy. I start filming, I start live streaming. People ask me, you know, within the next couple of years, I'm working at Vice and at these companies, they say, how do I do what you do? I really want to do it. And I would be like, oh, it's really easy. You take your phone and you point it at something and then you record it. But I'm not. It's not a joke. I mean,
no, it's it's funny that you say that. Yeah.
Quite literally, I went down to Occupy and I had a phone and I started using Ustream and streaming, and then people started sharing it because they wanted to see.
That's really interesting.
And but here's the other crazy thing that I learned too, is I'd get emails all the time from people around, you know, 2013, 2014, and still to this day, obviously. But back then, I'm traveling around for Vice. You know, I go to New Zealand, I go to Turkey. And I get all these emails from people being like, you're living my dream. I want to do what you do. How do I do it? And the first thing I say is, you just need to go places and film, start small. You know, I went to Occupy Wall Street, it cost me $20. And they were like, okay, but, you know, I have rent. I have to pay my bills.
That is so interesting.
And so I remember talking to a friend who lived in Williamsburg and had like paid $1,200 a month on rent or whatever. And they were like, how do I do this? Get to travel to these countries? And I was like, well, obviously you got to start small, but I'd recommend, you know, buying a phone, you know, maybe fly to a city when you know there's a news story happening or something, there's gonna be a protest, film it, document it. And they said, but I have to pay my rent. And I was like, all you've said to me right now is, your apartment in Williamsburg is more important to you than doing the journalism.
You said it was $20. I mean,
no. That's what I'm saying. Look, I'm saying start small, right? I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have rent when I traveled to New York City. I didn't have an apartment, right? So it was $20 for me to go, but
I mean that as furthering your argument to these people, because it's not that much of a sacrifice to go out and just do this thing.
Well, my point was, I have not attached myself to a hipster neighborhood apartment that costs me money. I would absolutely forego living in Williamsburg if it meant I could fly myself to Spain instead. So these people actually have the $2,000 per month that could fund a lot of journalism.
But what you said is very deep. They reach out to you. They do this to me all the time. I want to work for you. I get thousands of resumes But like when push comes to actual shove, like I want to do what you do. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. When push comes to shove, okay, take out your phone, point it at that thing over there. It's like, so it's almost like you're their therapist.
Wait. I got it. I figured it out. I know how to solve this problem. When someone applies for a job, you know, send you a resume, you respond with like, are you willing to do what it takes to become a real journalist and face down those risks? And say yes. You get a bunch of your buddies to dress up in like SWAT gear and FBI fake, you know, Fed gear or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you put them in the room with the light hanging low so they can only see the lower torso, and you interrogate them and see if they crack.
First.
I'm kidding, by the way.
You get a van that says free puppies on the side of it.
This is when you do hostile environment training. I actually did this, and it was like the most fun ever.
Yeah.
Dude, if you like playing video games, you will love doing hostile environment training for kidnappings and torture and interrogation.
I remember my first day in college in Journalism 101. And I remember going there screaming at my family, being like, this is a scam. This is not going to be worth anything. I don't want to be here. Why am I working and going? This doesn't make any sense. I'm there. And I'm sitting down at orientation and they're explaining what's going to be happening. And they're like, okay, so, you know, you're going to be here and then you're going to learn the AP style guide and we're going to learn how to do, you know, effective journalism journalism. We're going to learn how to talk about climate change and all these social justice warrior issues. And I'm like, we're going to talk about these causes, and we're going to be a vessel for that. I'm like, okay, when can we actually do journalism? When can we go out there? They're like, no, we don't do that here. I'm like, what do you mean you don't do that here? So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense at all. And they're like, no, you wait here. I'm like, when will I be able to actually go out there and do some actual real journalism in the streets? When can I talk to the politicians? When can I ask them questions? They're like, oh, at the end of this whole entire course, at 4 years in, 3.5 years after doing this, at the last semester, you will be given a press pass. Then that press pass will allow you to have access to some people. And I'm like, this is bullcrap. We should be doing this automatically. So I snuck in to the last class, that last semester class. I got myself a press credential, even though I was not registered for that particular class, because in the beginning of class schedules, they always have a mix-up. I got that press credential. I hit the streets. I went after the mayor, confronted him about the 9/11 first responders. The mayor contacted the college and then got me in trouble. They're like, who the hell is this kid under your press credential?
The answer to your question is, when do we get to go out and do this, was whenever you feel like it.
Exactly.
Okay, but this is a really important point, because when I was starting in undercover journalism, I had to take someone by the hand and go in there with them. That's the only way that I could cross that divide. And when you do that, when you go into the field of action, action is a different thing than conscience. And I would have to go in there, hold them by the hand, and bring them with me and do it. The only way that I know how to lead is by example, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes I hope I would try to, but I can't. I could never teach courage. I could never. You have to lead it. You have to lead. So where does that lead us today? Because obviously James O'Keefe can't go into every single institution with a hidden camera. You have to create a community of people who are leaning on each other. I was talking to a Medal of Honor recipient over the summer, and he gave me advice, and he said, you have to find a way to spread the load over other people. And he gave this talk, and he was talking about being a prisoner of war, and everyone's being tortured. And eventually, when you're tortured, you confess, because that's just what human beings do when you're tortured like you are. And he said the guilt and the shame that they felt going back to the jail cell after having confessed. And he said the only thing that kept us alive was we had each other. And I think citizen journalists have to have a community of like-minded people who are also courageous. And Tim, why waste your time with these people who reach out to you? I want to do what you do. Okay, prove it.
Right.
So when I see 1,000 resumes, I want to see what great thing did you do and build. Go out and do it. Nothing's stopping you from doing this. But you do need the tools, and you do need the knowledge. But you have to find people who are willing to take the action. And there's enough of them in this country. There might be millions of people who want to complain, but there's people who are willing to do it.
I was in Virginia, living with my brother. We saw news about Occupy Wall Street. I bought a one-way bus ticket, and the reason I bought it one way was because I was originally planning on buying a round-trip, week-long ticket. Go there for a week, $40, and then I said, I'll probably want to leave sooner than that. I get some protest or whatever. I'll go there for a day. Where am I going to sleep? I don't even know. I traveled with just a backpack with my savings safely in an envelope at the bottom of my backpack. I could have lost it. My computer, went there, and that's it. No plan. I remember the first day I was there was like a Thursday or something. I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was a Wednesday. It was raining, and I'm standing under a tarp with 7 people, and I was like, this was stupid. There's nothing going on. And then they said, trust me, just wait till the weekend. It'll get crazy. I slept outside for several days. There are people who are absolutely unwilling to sleep outside, unwilling to take the risk. There are people who would say, oh, I'd go and do it, but where am I sleeping? And I was like, well, I slept on the ground. I turned my backpack around, put my arms over it, and slept.
What do you think it is about
down.
You that did that? Because I want to understand versus other.
It was fun.
Okay, it was fun.
I know. I mean, this is the crazy thing to me. We grow up hearing these stories. Look at Lord of the Rings. A bunch of little farmer halflings who are not fighters, and all they want to do is eat food and smoke pipes. And they're like, I guess I'm going to travel halfway around the world to the most dangerous place on the planet. And these are the stories I grew up on. And I'm like, the closest I can get to that is hopping on a bus with air conditioning to the biggest city in the country, and then hang out in a park surrounded by luxury. And I'm like, the closest thing I can get to an adventure is just I'll sleep outside a little bit, I guess.
And what made you that way? Because that's unusual.
Probably movies, I guess. I don't know.
Movies.
Video games, movies, superhero
But you did it
stories.
to tell
Genetics.
You did it to tell
Probably
stories
genetics.
like journalistic stories, or you did it because it was a fun exercise of expression.
I want to go on adventures.
Adventures.
You know, so that I mean, and that was like 10 years. Or maybe eight or so years of that, and that got to the point where you can't do it anymore for a variety of reasons, especially if you get too many followers. Then instead of going on adventures, I'm just being harassed all the time, and so then it turns into something more like this. But for me, you know, I've been to 30 some odd countries, covering a bunch of different news stories, speaking at conferences, and it's because I wanted to go on those adventures and experience and see things and understand them. And one of the biggest components, especially, is the media is always lying. We've been told the media lies to us all the time. And so when these things are happening, I just wanted to see it happen. You know, what happened was there was a video that went viral of the police dragging one of the occupiers out of the park, leaving him bleeding on his hands or whatever. And then everyone's talking.
Zuccotti Park.
Zuccotti. And then I was like, man, I want to see that. I want to go there. I don't want to watch
I think it was his
It was
head,
a
though.
venture.
He was bleeding from his head.
from his head.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to watch a video about it. It's $20 and I can actually
So
go
you were
there.
sitting there in your wherever you were and thinking, I'm just going to go
Newport
there.
News.
Newport News, Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Being a public figure like you are, it gets to a point in space and time where, and initially not really people knew who I was or maybe who you were, but then when you become a public figure, it's almost like they want to be around you to suck the energy.
Yes. Yeah, I was just saying that.
Not because they want to support your adventurous mission or artistic whatever. It's because you are famous.
But you know what I do love too is seeing the disappointment in the people who never had it in the first place. And it's not so much that I'm gloating from their pain or whatever, but when I've met people who are like, I want to do what you do, and then I'd say something like, come hang out and we'll show you what we do. And then the immediate response is like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This happens
It's,
to me all the time.
we were talking with this is really funny. We were setting up an interview with Andrew Tate last year before the arrest and all the stuff went down, and we were like, we'd love to like talk to you obviously about what you're working on now, and he was like, bro, I'm just sitting here on the laptop all day, it's boring. And we were like, I think people need to see that, because the assumption is when you see the highlight reel of some famous or successful person, and you know, people see the I'll give you an example. This event we're doing later today in Miami. Most people just think we call up the venue and say, hey, do you have availability for this date? Great, we'll be there. It took almost a year to organize this event. It costed like $100 grand plus, probably more than that, substantially more than that actually. And organizing has been one of the most stressful things imaginable for one day in one theater.
Yep.
It is, and I'm like, anybody who watches this show and they're like, I wish I was there, so I was doing it. And it's like, man, no, you don't, because when I worked at Vice, I remember I went out to get drinks with Shane Smith, the CEO, and we were talking about like, you know, what the company was doing, what I was working on, and I was like, look, I want your job, and he's like, no, you don't. My job sucks. And I was like, no, I do want your job, and I was like, but I understand what you're saying, because I've managed teams before, but his attitude, I totally get. When you're talking to 99% of the people who say they want to do what you do, no, they don't. They want to sit in a comfy chair with the game on and their buddies who are looking at them like they're a hero.
Well, they want the spoils of it, but not the responsibility. They want the authority without the responsibility.
Exactly. They want to feel respected and accepted, and they want to not have to worry about money or resources,
Well,
but that's impossible. Real quick. There will never come a time in your life where you're no longer worried about the money. So a CEO who's worth millions of dollars, maybe you retire. Yeah, when you're retired, now you're worried about the market. You're worried about your retirement accounts and whether you're budgeting appropriately. If you're a billionaire, even you've got to worry about the SEC auditing, investigating you. And for somebody who is wealthy, maybe you inherit money. Okay, well, what are you going to do to sustain this? Somebody who runs a company, they say, you're so lucky you're rich. And it's just like, definitely living better. I'm not saying that's not true. But now you're worried about all of your employees, how they're getting paid, whether the new taxes, new regulations, new laws. In fact, that saying, that old song, More Money, More Problems, I'm younger and I'm wondering, like, how does that make sense? And I'm like, it definitely is true.
Well, for the people who kind of feed off of your energy, there's a lot of things that we could talk about there, especially when it comes to the spiritual aspects. But I think predominantly a lot of those individuals are adverse to discomfort when I kind of seek it. I like discomfort. I like challenges. I like growth. I like being able to go out there and say, hey, this is going to be very difficult. I've essentially picked the largest, most difficult task to ever try to achieve, and that is trying to expose the satanic demons in our society and the evildoers in our population that have hijacked our government. So when you look at everyone who is where they are, it's not, and a lot of people think they just got there, it was very easy, it was very quick, it was very simple. It is not. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of sacrifice, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I've been in jail many times. I know you've been in jail many times. It's not fun, but the people who are there are usually there for a reason.
And I'm sure you've gotten this before. I probably shouldn't say this, but can I get a picture? Can I get a picture? And I was talking to someone, I'm not going to name him, but you know who he is. Very, very big name. I said, how do you do it? How do you stand there? Because I shake every hand and take every picture. And then they'll go, oh, you look exhausted. People, well, why I look exhausted is because this is not what motivates me. And I know, fans are watching, oh, James hates pictures. It's like, no, I enjoy that you guys are following me, and I enjoy that you read our work, but it's not why I started this. And most people, when you get to a certain point, they just want. It's almost like Dan Ellsberg was the former Librarian of Congress, and he wrote a book called The Image, and it said a hero is a big man, a celebrity is a big name, and sometimes the two overlap, but it gets to the point where our people. They want a picture with you. They want to, and I know that you've experienced this,
Of course.
And after a while, it's like I don't even want to go outside. I think there was a documentary about Michael Jordan. Same thing. He had to stay in his hotel room, and you want to avoid you want to find a way to energize yourself. So this is a really important point. This is the energy suck. Is that and that's why we'll eventually get back to the citizen journalism thing where people have skin in the game. Because the people that just want to talk to you because they feel bad they can't do what you do, you have limited time, I have limited time. We have to spend our energy and our time wisely to empower the people who do want to do it.
How do you feel?
There's two things to address there. The first is, I'll give you an anecdote. I was in Brazil during these big protests, and there's a comedian down there named Rafinha Bastos. He's a great dude, but he is ridiculously famous. He's like Brazilian Joe Rogan. And we were trying to walk around and watch what was going on with the protests. Dude couldn't walk 5 feet without 20 people surrounding him the whole time. So he looks at one guy who's wearing a Guy Fawkes mask and he goes, "My friend, can I have your mask?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he puts it on and it's like, "I have to go." And he starts walking. It helped a little bit. That kind of fame and attention, I can understand what you're saying. Now for me, that doesn't happen to me when I go outside. I don't have everyone running up to me and screaming. But for the event like today, I do. Someone comes up to me and says, "Can I get a picture?" Absolutely, of course. For one reason, I'm hoping that what it is I represent we will create a memory, a moment, a pin in the timeline of this person that instills these values with them forever. And so I want to make sure that every interaction I have with someone, a handshake, a smile, thank you so much for supporting me. I really do appreciate it. I want them to have the most positive feeling and associate the work we do with goodness. And I want them never to forget.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's a very good point.
But with all the energy vampires out there, I wanted to ask you guys, how do you fill your energy from the void?
Coffee. Lots and lots of psychoactive
How much
stimulants.
coffee do you drink? How much caffeine?
I just have a glass a day.
A glass a day.
I have a coffee for breakfast. That's it.
Energizing things are great question. And I know what you mean, Tim. It's like if you don't take. There was 9 years ago, someone said, "Can I get a picture?" I'm like, no. And then for the rest of their life, they're going to think that I'm a dick. Because the only thing they're going to remember is that 10-second interaction. But to be honest, to be truly authentic, because I think one of the reasons people support me and have donated is because they do think I'm a sincere person. So in many regards, this sort of idea of smiling for the camera, isn't it contrary to sincerity? Just a little bit. Smile! Sometimes you don't want to smile. Sometimes you're thinking about something else. And you're busy, so you have to find something enjoyable. When this guy told me, and his name, he's very famous, and he said, and he's very successful, and he's very talented, and he said, you have to find something enjoyable about the interaction. So it's even if asking where you're from, and you have to find, but it is an energy suck. It is an energy suck because of this, because it's an exchange of something, and they're getting it, and they're taking something from you. I want your picture. I want your attention. I want you to care about me and my problems. So what gives me energy, what boosts me up, is empowering people to go do the action. Is finding a Tim Pool out there and saying, hey, why don't you get on that bus and go to that protest? Is when people are contributing. That's what gives me energy, which is to find the people who are willing. That's what wakes me up in the morning.
There are more followers than there are leaders. And in today's society, it is typically the desire to be the leader. You imagine this great battlefield, and nobody imagines themselves as just a frontline soldier that no one remembers the name of. They remember the great general on the horse. And because of these stories, I think it creates this negative view of someone who is a follower. Follower is seen as negative. And I think that's wrong. I was talking to Meet Kevin. And I mentioned, why do we love dogs so much? Why do so many people get pissed off in a movie when a dog gets hurt? Because dogs are loyal to you. Why do we love the story of Hachiko the dog who waited for 10 years for his owner who died at the train station? Because of loyalty. And so what I say is some people are leaders, and that means all the arrows are flying towards them. But I actually think there is no difference in terms of status in being a follower of the leader. Someone who is willing to stand on the front line staring down the barrel of warfare because they trust you, they believe in you, and they know that your vision will make everything better.
Very good point. I mean, my vision is slightly different, and then I want to create lots of little leaders, but your point is well taken too.
But they are little leaders, right? My view is this. If there's a great general, a Washington, or, whether you think he was great or not, he's leading the American Revolution, there are men who knew, I am going to stand in front of him and you, because he is going to save this country, bring about this new nation, and I will be his divine instrument in stopping you. And that means these people standing on the front line, it's really crazy when you think about it. There's a phrase for it, someone just told me, I forgot it was forlorn hope or something, where you are a frontline soldier staring down the enemy, and you have a 95% chance of dying.
Yeah, that's what
I don't understand why we as a society don't say that is the ultimate sacrifice and the hero. In these old wars, my favorite movie, The Patriot, when Cornwallis is like, killing officers. Could you imagine the chaos? Yeah, the officers need to be protected and saved, and it's the men who must die for us. No, I think it's the men who are dying for you, but they're not dying so that you can be safe and protected and live your uppity luxury life. It's because they believe in you to carry on the mission, and you are essentially the light source.
That's a feedback I got from some of the customers for the O'Keefe Academy Masterclass, because I called a lot of them last week, and they said to me, you have a gun pointed at your head, James, and I admire that, and I want to help you because I can't do that. I can do something. So there's an element of that where the leader is taking the arrows.
I am Spartacus.
And I also think you're right. Like 95%, that seems to me about accurate. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's great. Life is about more than you have to pursue truth. You have to do the right thing no matter what. You have to.
Well, as you were saying earlier, the tribe and the community does matter. And to be a little bit more nuanced about, the individuals who are taking your photo, there's some people you meet that are absolute energy sucks, that you're there, that you just feel kind of depressed, that you kind of just feel it in your gut, like, holy cow, this does not feel good.
Why aren't you smiling?
Drained,
Why aren't you smiling?
And you feel drained from it. But there's also some individuals that come up that are filled with life, that you could see into their eyes. They're very happy.
That's true.
They're very energetic, and they actually do uplift you. So I think with any kind of human being, it also represents the residency and the energy that they have within them. And sometimes, when I take a photo, I feel great. I feel really happy. I feel really excited. I'm so happy I met these individuals and these people, and I'm able to learn from them and share with them. And this is why I do a lot of meetups. I'm doing one this Sunday to meet up with a lot of the people who are members of LukeUnfiltered.com, because I want to see them. I want to meet them. And all those interactions always keep me uplifted and full of energy. Sometimes when I do meet other people at conferences, holy cow, I just feel so depressed after taking so many photos. I just feel so down, and I'm just like, what just happened here?
At the conference, what do you find the ratio is? Is it 1 to 10? Because I know exactly what you mean. Like,
it also depends on the person, because one person could have really intense negative energy, and it just gets sucked into it. Like, I want to be as far as
exactly
away as
what
I can.
you're talking
and
about.
I can't explain it because there's no physical characteristics that could pretty much describe this. It's just an energy that one particular person has that is just bad. I feel this when I do a lot of my confrontations. You feel the energy around different kind of individuals and people. Henry Kissinger, bad
Wow.
energy.
Evil auras, man.
Lord Jacob Rothschild, bad energy. Rockefeller, bad energy. And you just kind of feel like
Andrew
this
Breitbart
kind
used to
of,
call it, when I first met him, he called it psychic vampires, is what he said when he said events and people. But
yes, yeah. No,
but I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Like I was in Iowa. I'd never really been to Iowa, and I spoke there, and all the people came up to me, had such pure, kind eyes.
Exactly.
And it was like uplifting. Every little interaction was so uplifting because they were talking to you about some deep, even in the 15 seconds.
Exactly.
15 seconds. They would, it was actually quite uplifting and quite touching. I'm in a remote Iowa place, but if you're at a conference in DC or something,
Yes.
it's a different level.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it really does depend where you are too. I recommend everybody watch the movie The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson. It's like the best movie ever. In terms, I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why you might think a movie is good, but it's a story about it's the American Revolution. A guy doesn't want to go to war. He doesn't want to fight. He refuses, and then the British come and kill his kid, and now he wants retribution. He wants revenge, and I think there's so many lessons. And there's maybe not lessons is the right word, but it's a great story that inspires in a lot of ways. And I think it gets a message across. If you sit back and wait and ignore the fighting comes to you, whether you want it to or not. And it's your children who will pay the ultimate price. And he ends up, I think, losing a couple of his kids throughout the movie. But in the end, he's like this great soldier who's well known for his leadership, but he doesn't want to fight anymore. In the end, he grabs the American flag and runs back towards the field to rally everyone to keep pushing.
After that's said to him, or
So, like in the beginning, he's like, "I will not go to war. We do not want war. Trust me. It is not that these wars will not be fought on a far off battlefield. They'll be fought in front of your homes, in front of your children." And so he refuses to vote in favor of this fight. And then ultimately,
I see.
The war comes to him.
The war comes to him. His son refuses to back down, and then one of his kids is killed.
Let's make this less abstract. I think more people, Tim, in my experience, they feel a kind of guilt that they won't do it or can't do it or for whatever reason. But most people actually, I think, watching this right now, realize that they should do it even though they have kids. And actually, it's because of the kids. With the school board stuff I've done, I mean, more mothers have asked for cameras than anybody. It's a motivating thing. And I think it's going to require sacrifice. Was it 95%? Do you think that's true for present day? If you're a leader, you get shot down. It's about 95%. Was for Washington, right?
95.
For George Washington getting shot down, and the head of the, knowing that you're going into battle and you're going to get shot down, knowing that with certainty.
I mean, the people who stood in front of him, we have this mentality of George Washington is the great name we will remember. And I'd like to know the name of every single member of the Continental Army who stood in front of George Washington and said, if you want him, you got to go through me first. Because again, we celebrate the leaders and these great names without realizing that tens of thousands of men used their bodies as shields and were the instruments of liberty for Washington. Well, I don't like the idea that it's like, don't be a follower. We want to be. No. Being a follower isn't a bad thing. Following bad people for bad reasons is a bad thing. But my view on this is kind of like, there are a lot of people who say I can't do it. I don't fault them for not being able to do it. And I say this all the time. Look, if you're a tradesman, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, your job is to instruct the future generation, to build the infrastructure that makes this possible. I don't want you to leave that job where you're doing something important for the world because you have to go to DC and be a politician. Some people can, they can assume that role. The other thing you can do is contribute your time, energy, or resources in any way possible. Sometimes that means you donate some goods. Sometimes that means you speak up at work, or it just means maybe the best you can do is $10 to fund an organization, to make contributions in any way possible, and encourage others to contribute. As a person who speaks up, you're actively in the fray. You could lose your job. I got all that stuff. But speaking up is powerful, incredibly powerful. It shifts the cultural narrative. If everybody spoke up, the culture would be over. Yes. Seriously. But for too long, too many people said, I'm not going to put risk on myself. Now, I take issue with that. that is not being a follower. That's being that's something else, right? A follower is not a bad thing. A follower who says, "Hey, look, I watch Tucker Carlson, Crowder, I watch Viva, I listen to James O'Keefe, and I support financially, I support with words, I will speak up about what they do." That's being a follower, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But then there are people who are like, I don't know what you'd call it. They're neither. They hide and they say, "I hope that whatever happens here, this fighting is resolved and no one comes and bothers me about it." But that means that you doing nothing will allow evil to triumph.
That's right, but they're out there. They're out there. They may not be in the millions. They may be in the thousands or tens of thousands, but they're out there. And I love the example of doing it. I think, Luke, that's the issue. That's the thing. I think the course work that O'Keefe Media Group is where you have to go out in the field and do an exercise. So when we do undercover work, we that's where you really the rubber meets the road. Go out into a restaurant and talk to someone and record it and we call it pulling the trigger exercises, metaphorically speaking. You have to ask the uncomfortable questions. It's very difficult. Sometimes it's so difficult your heart's beating 180 beats per minute.
I'm used to that feeling.
I mean, and in the beginning, and by the way, my adrenal glands are done.
Good.
I don't even
Yes.
my adrenal is like, I'm the calmest when I'm ambushing people at this point in time. But in the beginning it was rough.
It's nerve-wracking.
You have to force yourself. It's almost like you have to will yourself to cross the Rubicon to go do this thing. I was in college confronting professors, and I said, "I'm not meant to do this." That's what I said.
It's uncomfortable.
It's beyond uncomfortable.
There are psychic barriers, and I call it psychic, call it whatever you want. An example being, I love the conspiracy theories about Luke, that he must be a Fed because there's no way a person could get access to these events and to these people. And the reality is, you go to an event and there's like a security guard standing at the door, and there's the big corporate, the CEO or whatever, who's got a big story and some malfeasance, and you want to get that question, but the psychic barrier is the rules say I'm not allowed to walk past this security guard. And we were talking about this the other day about like, what would you do or say when you are entering an area that you believe you shouldn't be? I'm like, first of all, there's no such thing as a place you shouldn't be. I mean, certainly there are, right? If there's like a person bleeding out and they say, like, "Hey, stay back, we're helping this guy," yeah, you shouldn't be there. Like, let them save a life. But in terms of these events where public figures and politicians are speaking and standing, you should only not be there if you are told you are not allowed to be there explicitly.
Right.
Don't make the assumption you are not welcome. First mistake people have, psychic barrier. They see a high-profile individual in a building and they think, "Well, I can't go in there." You walk in the front door of the lobby and you might find out you actually are allowed to be there. Yeah. Like, they'll let you know.
When I did the Acorn story, in undercover where we call it ARMS, which is what you get if you pay for our class. Agree, reframe, make the case, shut up. Agree, reframe, make the case, shut up. Agree, reframe, make the case, shut up. That means that when I did the Acorn story, I went in there as my girlfriend was a prostitute, and I said I was going to whore her out. It was an illegal scheme. And the woman said, "I'm sorry, sir, we can't talk to you." I'm like, I had to ask her 7 times, and finally, in the 8th time, I say, "Listen, I have a unique life situation. My colleague here is a lady of the night," and I had to reframe it. And finally, she goes, "All right, let's sit down." Most people wouldn't even bother after the first attempt,
Exactly.
but the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And I know you do this. And I saw your recent one. Who was it with? The guy that you just ambushed.
I did. What's his name? The governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
No.
I mean, you have to jump over repeatedly, jump over walls.
As security's pushing you, telling you no more questions, no more. We're not doing this. And I'm like, you are. I don't care.
I hear what you're saying. But also, did you just you're
Yeah.
constantly like sort of Dave Letterman interviewing Paris Hilton over and over again.
My first confrontation, I came very close to not doing it. My first confrontation was with Zbigniew Brzezinski. I remember sitting in the theater, and as I was in the theater, you had to kind of raise your hand to get picked up. The first 2 questions, I didn't raise my hand. I was terrified. I was scared. I thought my life was going to be taken away from me. I thought I was going to be black vanned. I thought I was going to be taken out. And it really did just, I think we're having some mic issues.
I think your cable's loose or something.
I think it's fine now. It came down to me saying, F it. Life is short. I just lost someone that was very close to me. And that was really the motivating cause for saying, you know what, I'm just going to go all in. And I ended up calling him out on financing the Taliban, the Mujahideen, for being partly responsible for a major event in New York City, for being a part of major secret societies, until the whole event erupted and booed me. And I got literally dragged out of that event and then chased down the street because they were trying to steal the camera that recorded this entire incident. And I remember feeling so amazing afterwards, knowing that I committed to something, knowing that it was extremely uncomfortable. I had a little grandma turn around, curse me out, and say really awful things right to my face, eye to eye. I can't say those things here on this particular broadcast.
Do you still get scared? Do you still?
Yes.
This is still
Yes.
not as heightened as it was.
I still get scared, and it's
Like your
natural
heart
because
starts racing
yes,
and- yeah.
automatically, because you're going up to a politician and confronting them with an uncomfortable truth. You're going up to them, and everyone's kissing their butt. Everyone's telling them how great they are.
Yeah.
Everyone's telling them how they love them and how they want to work with them and take a photo with them. And you're like, okay, let's talk about all the lives you ruined. Let's talk about all the businesses you destroyed. Let's talk about all the people you caused horrendous death and suffering. Let's actually hold you accountable to your actions. And there's a huge power transfer when that happens. But also an important aspect of these politicians being humbled and understanding that, holy cow, I have to face accountability to the people that I just screwed over. And that right there is something that I can't recommend enough.
It's not just this. It's all you're talking about getting past security guards and the reverse psychology. It's also like All the President's Men, which is a movie about Woodward and Bernstein, as in the analog era. They had to show up to people's houses. They had to.
Yep.
There's this sort of indefatigability, resilience thing that everyone has to have in order to do this work, which is you're getting told no 87 times until they had to show up repeatedly. You know, and I hate to give them kudos, but there are elements of what they did that are remarkable. And that they would show up to a woman's house and she says, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. And there's this scene of Dustin Hoffman in the living room where he's just, as he's being escorted out the door, drinking his coffee, just trying so hard to get the story when all the obstacles are against you. What makes someone that way? I think it's a desire to get to the truth. And when you're so passionate about that, I call a story, the story you're trying to get, nothing will get in your way.
Yeah.
So you have to be, that has to motivate you. That has to be your motivator. I have to get there. Nothing is going to get in my way. And I mean,
these people did something horrible. They're going to continue to do something horrible unless we actually have a conversation and call them out, and they see their reaction, and and they actually face account to it. We could get justice. We could actually have some kind of energetic kind of reckoning with these individuals if I just do my job. So that's how I saw it. I saw myself as a werewolf. They were sheep. I was like, I'm hungry. I need to eat. I need to feed off of their freaking lies and all the crap and all the propaganda and PR marketing that they're using in order to screw people over. And I don't care how many times I was denied access. I don't care how many times I was emailed saying, no, do not come to this event. Luke, we know who you are. Please do not come here. I came, I used different names. I used different press credentials. I used different schemes. I came in through different doors. I walked through different angles. I talked my way into it. I got in there and I went right up to that person face to face. And in many instances, many times, the PR people that told me I couldn't even come brought me to those individuals face to face, and it's just about showing up. Just show up. Just do it.
What was the Family Guy joke that Media Matters will get mad at me for bringing up when James Bond says 7 no's and a yes means yes, and it's like, but the point is, it's like you were just saying before. If you go up to someone and say, "Hey, I'd like to come and ask some questions," no. Well, can I just ask 1 or 2 questions? No. Seriously? How about 1 question? No. Look, I've got one thing to ask. It's about this. Okay, fine, you can do it. So
just ask the question. I don't even ask permission.
No, I'm saying like if a PR person standing in front of you, like you have to leave, you might get 4 no's and then a yes.
I'm sorry, sir. Our schedule's fully booked. Listen, I have a very unique situation. I'm sorry, sir. No. It's really okay. What's your situation? My girlfriend's She's a prostitute. So wait, okay, now that's interesting. You reframe, make the case shut up. Reframe, make the case shut up, and then you do whatever it takes to get the story. Ken Auletta, legendary, I think he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He even said, this is a quote in my book, lie. When he says lie, he means lie to get in, sort of like credentials. Anything to break through that palace guard. Anything to get the story.
Well, hold on. Lie? I mean,
undercover lie. Undercover lie.
I love
not lie to the audience.
Right. You lie like a journalist, right? I'll give you an example. Oliver Darcy, we love this guy, don't we? He wrote a story about the impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden and said something to the effect of, despite there being no evidence. Well, the inquiry's purpose is to seek out evidence, not to impeach. So he's falsely framing the story to make it seem like it's unwarranted. The inquiry is not about there being evidence, about is there evidence. Mm-hmm. He wants to falsely frame it. So I'll give you an example in the real world if you want to learn a lot like a journalist. Let's say you're at an event, and I always say, like, if they explicitly kick you out, do not trespass, you get arrested, right? But you go to an event, and there's a clear backstage area where there's prominent people and they're talking, whatever. Always be wary about security issues. If you're going to a high security event, I don't recommend doing this because we don't want anyone getting hurt. And I wouldn't say this is advice. I'm just saying this to give you an example of the psychic barriers. Just because you see a security guard, why would you make the assumption you're not allowed to go back there? In fact, like I mentioned, sometimes you see a security guard, you walk in the hotel lobby, they'll get the door for you. So don't make assumptions. The other thing is, if they ask you, hey, what do you think you're doing? I'm working. Typically, that answer is sufficient for most people. If you are there working, you're allowed to be there. The question is, what does it mean to be working? What assumptions are they making? Right. So if they assume you're saying you're working at the event like a busboy, that's not your fault. You told them the truth.
Yeah. If you're driven and if you're confident, you could get away with anything. And I remember teaching a lot of random people this trick about how to get past certain barriers in order to get to politicians. One of the people that I trained used a lot of the same techniques and literally walked into the Super Bowl without a ticket. And then during the MVP speech, grabbed the microphone from the MVP during the Super Bowl and then told everyone that the government was lying to them about an event.
But I'm not a fan of that.
But we're just talking about the larger sentiments of
what I'm saying is if you are in a private event and you walk in because you act like you own the place, and then someone says, "Excuse me, sir, what do you think you're doing?" You say, "I'm working. Please don't bother me." They're going to say, "Okay."
I snuck into a school once. This is the craziest story of my life. It's an obscure anecdote, but people find it interesting. I snuck into a school in 2016 pretending to be someone giving an award to a teacher. And schools are like Fort Knox. I mean, it's like impossible to do this. I did this as James O'Keefe in a light disguise. It's all about your manner. Undercover work, your manner matters more than your disguise. And this guy, this teacher had done cocaine. He's a health teacher. And he had done cocaine. He was offering cocaine. So I have him on video doing this. And I go into this school and I said my name is Bill with New Star Learning. And the secretary is sitting there and she's very skeptical, but I had to be, so she brings me into the gymnasium with all the children, and I present this, it's on YouTube, I present this trophy to this drug health teacher, unbeknownst to him. And that was terrifying for me. But I think it's the resilience thing. It's the not taking no for, and by the way, you mentioned lying. Undercover work, it's a question of relative deception, because if you present yourself as a journalist, what you're going to be told are lies.
Right.
When you say, I'm from the Washington Post, you're going to be lied to. But if you present yourself as not a journalist, then you're going to get honesty. So it's a question of relative deception.
Bill was my fake name too.
Oh, is that right?
But it was Bill and then last name DeBerg. And then I used that all the time.
Do they get that? Do they get
no,
that?
They never got it. It was always freaking hilarious.
I guess to get that would be to admit something.
Yeah.
So I used to work for a music venue, and it blew my mind when I found out that if you all these people are trying to sneak backstage, like in the movies and stuff. And then when I started working there, guess what? The doors are open with no security at 1 p.m. for load-in and for setup. And so when I get this job and they're like, come in tomorrow at 1 p.m. for, to fill out the paperwork, I walk to the venue and there's this big band playing. It's like a 1,000 something seat venue. And it's like a decently large mid-sized band. And I'm like, oh, cool. Wow, they're playing. And they're just standing there, walking in, back and forth, going backstage. I walk in, no security everywhere. The building's empty. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. And then I walk into the green room where there's drinks and like the band's hanging out. I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, how's it going, man? I'm like, cool. And I just walk out.
It
And
was
I'm
the
like,
way you behaved.
well, no. So the security only showed up at 6 p.m. an hour before. The security only activated like an hour before doors. Everyone shows up, and then they see the security guards. I'm like, how do I get past the security guards? Like, you show up early? It's crazy how I think like the venue knows this. They know they don't need security guards because the average person operates so predictably that they only show up right before the event, and that's when you need security. And I went there for a job and realized there was nobody there, and I was like walking around, going wherever I wanted, going to the basement, and I'm like, nobody cared. And then I tell the guy who was hiring me, I was like, I walked around, it was really cool. He's like, oh, did you check out the green? I was like, yeah, the band was there. He's like, cool. Nobody cares. So I asked, I was like, do regular people just walk in off the street? He's like, yes. So when the doors are open and they're setting up, someone will be walking by and walk in and ask about what's going on, and they'll hang out for a bit like a regular customer, just like, oh, hey, what are you guys doing today? And they're like, oh, we're having a show. It's going to be at 8. Here's the band. And they'll go, oh, cool. And then they'll be like, all right, well, I'll leave and I'll come back later. Then the fans of the band show up only at the last minute going like, oh, man, I wish I could go backstage. It's like, well, like just nobody understands that the world is not, is not so rigid. It's more analog.
Yeah.
Just be like, they assume a guy standing somewhere means something, and then that holds them back.
It's sort of a corollary here, but with the methods that we're teaching at OMG for undercover work, this is such a cliche, but people always think, oh, to get these girls to sleep with these guys, to get all this information, like the BlackRock guy, and we did one on Fox News recently too, talking about the Dominion lawsuit. It's actually no. And if you look at the video that one of my colleagues did about Charlie Chester at CNN, this guy, we talked about this last time, was confessing. Yeah. And it's almost like they need someone to confess to. But the technique that we use, which is a tale as old as time, is you just have to express interest you have to express interest in them as people. Yeah. Actually care. So that you sleep with them. No, we don't. We don't do that. We don't cross the ethical line. You really have to. It's amazing what people will tell you if you just ask and are genuinely interested in them. Because most people aren't. Most people like to talk about themselves. So that it's a simple technique, but there's a great book that we give out called "It's Not About Me," where we would give this to every undercover journalist, and you read it. And it's like, it's not about me, it's about them. Just little techniques that citizens can learn that will, I think, make them more effective. Because I think knowledge is power. And I think being equipped as if it's a citizen, Elon's talking about citizen journalism, being a little equipped in the laws and how to do it, I think will generate more people doing it.
I wonder, though, I wonder if in your experience, I imagine there's probably two parent factions of individuals, those who gloat and those who confess, right? Some of these people that you'll confront probably have a deep pain within themselves, knowing they've done something wrong, and they want someone to tell them it's going to be okay, so they confess. Other people are gloating at the like, haha, guess what I got away with.
I mean, Charlie Chester was literally, his eyes were looked toward the ceiling, talking about fear cells. He was either acting in a kind of looking in the mirror way, or he was just having an internal dialogue, confessing, but never really even looked at the person. Just sort of talking internally aloud, because that's what people do.
But I think there's probably some people, like when you did the Twitter expose,
yeah,
the talking about the censorship and stuff. You did a bunch of them, but it was this one. It was the Asian guy? I'm not sure. It's been a while. But
there was an Indian guy who said Twitter is commie as fuck, and then there was this other guy calling Elon Musk autistic.
The Indian guy, I kind of felt like that was an admission of guilt. He needed to say it because he felt bad for being a part of what this was.
Is that's an interesting read.
He's
participating in it, but does he? You're saying he's not a communist.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm saying someone will be a part of something doing bad, and they'll think to themselves, "But I have to protect my family, so I have no choice. I wish I didn't have to do this." So when someone gives them the opportunity and says, what's happening, the reason they're telling you is because they're trying to absolve themselves of the sin.
There's a third option, that some of these engineers that we've covertly recorded are not really that political. They're just identifying reality. This place is communist. And, I don't really know much about that, but that's the way it is.
So that's the middle road, right? I think we've seen some people need someone to say, it's fine that you did this. I won't hate you for it, because they hate themselves. Mm-hmm. Then you probably have, as you described, these developers who are probably just like, 0011010. Like they're just saying it as it is. But then I think there are people who are going to smirk and be like, you want to know what I did? Man, I took these files and nobody's going to catch it. They're gloating.
Okay, there's actually a really important point. I was talking to Vivek about this. I interviewed him, and he said, what you do as an investigative reporter is you catch people on tape admitting things. People are willing to do things that they're not willing to admit that they're willing to do.
Yeah.
It's human nature. You're exposing the things that people will do, but they'll never admit that I'll do this. That's the job of an investigative reporter, is to reveal secrets that people are willing to keep for the wrong reasons. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is I did this thing, but don't tell anybody. And all these stories have this in common. All good stories have deception. I don't want people to know. And why is it? Why is it that we don't want people to know? Is it shame? Is it fear of social ostracism? Is it public humiliation if they knew that I was willing to do this?
They all know it's wrong. Whether they're gloating or confessing or just stating it, the only reason it's being said in private is because they know it was wrong.
By the way, you just mentioned the word wrong, i.e. right and wrong, i.e. good and evil. Morality. And the fact that there still is a morality, the fact that the villain in this case, the subject of undercover work, knows that it's wrong, means that the subject has a sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
And that shared morality, although the Venn diagram is shrinking, that morality, that righteous indignation that we summon from exposing things that our people are willing to do that they're not willing to admit that they're willing to do, that is the thing that keeps the fabric of society bound together. Because an investigative reporter summons righteous indignation and patrols the boundaries of the moral order, testing and affirming what is and what is not a shock to people's conscience. That's the role of an investigator. And by the way, the Washington Post doesn't do this. CNN, no one does this anymore.
There's a great tweet I reference quite a bit. It said, no one's trying to solve the problems anymore. They're trying to get wealthy enough so the problems don't apply to them. So that's what I see when I look at these journalists who are willing to lie, and they all do it. It's amazing, especially NBC News, one of the worst. And it's because in their minds, they were like, I got to get the clicks. I got to get paid. I understand it's everything's burning down around me, but at least I'll be on the lifeboat.
We got to get the clicks. It's all about the clicks, isn't it? It's all about that. That's all it is.
I think it's worshiping demons, but I'm a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah,
on
but
this.
it's the banality of demon worship versus overt.
I think
demon
it's a
worship.
combination of both. I think there's definitely layers of it that could be explained in both kind of single ways. But again, I'm just being kind of a little sensationalistic here when I just said that. But I kind of do wonder, like, is it them just who are propagandized and really do believe this stuff by the evil people, or are they actually evil? I think it depends on the individual and on the case as well.
The banality of and the malice of, right?
Well, when someone says, James, I want you to commit suicide, and he was on the board, I mean, what is that? That's
malicious
that's
evil.
Nasty. I mean, that's so, it's unconscionable. And the farther we get, like the farther you get to the truth when you're with these folks, I mean, do you feel that? Do you feel the presence of evil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I have had experiences in my life where I have felt what I can only describe as the presence of evil from bad people.
You mentioned they know it's wrong. That word
Right.
wrong, right and wrong. We still have that in this country, right? People still understand that.
And I think what we're seeing a lot of, like Oliver Darcy, he's our principal example today. He knows what he's doing is wrong. He doesn't care.
You think he knows that it's wrong?
I know he knows it's wrong. I not only have I met him in person on several occasions, there was one point a few years ago where he asked to grab a drink and talk about what was going on. And it's just like these journalists, they know what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing is
They
evil.
have to live with that. They have to live with that burden.
But their mortgages get paid, though.
Right. And this is the root.
You're not happy if
they're not.
I wondered to myself, what is the root of corruption, or what is the most common factor in it? And it is typically the desire to benefit yourself, your friends, and your family. And that sounds on its surface rather noble. But you'll see a lot of people who embezzle. Why? Well, he wanted to get money. He wanted to buy his wife the new car. He wanted to buy a car for himself. It's a degree of selfishness that surrounds an individual and their immediate relationships.
And James, they're not happy. They're depressed. They're alcoholics. They're pill poppers. They're drug addicts.
You have to suppress the voice,
and you
man.
have to do it. And this is what I realized amongst the corporate media when I was infiltrating them. I'm like, holy cow, there's a bunch of drug addicts here. Like they're all going freaking crazy. They're all
Because
partying
they
at night,
have
they're all
to
drinking at night.
compensate for their
need
lack of happiness.
They need to quiet the voice in their head that's like, hey, this is kind of messed up that I'm doing this.
And you don't have to
stop.
tell me how you know this, but you're telling us that you've learned or that you know that Oliver Darcy is he knows what he's doing.
Well, what I'm saying is, I've had when I've met with him years ago, my takeaway from the conversation we had is that he's aware of the game being played and he's playing it and he doesn't care.
That's really wrong. That's really bad.
But this is tons of journalists. There are some journalists that I've worked with when I was at Fusion who I genuinely feel are completely oblivious and just doing what they're told.
That's a little different.
I remember having a conversation with one journalist when I was at Fusion and talking about Trump and Trump supporters. And I said, and one of the issues with this company, for instance, is that it's taking a hard partisan line and insulting people who feel aggrieved. And this journalist was like, really? That's happening? And I'm like, you really don't know what people think or feel, do you? But it was a tech journalist. And so the tech journalists are fairly, and I mean it's in a literal sense, lightly autistic. They're very logical, 111001. But then there were people who are just stupid and they'll believe whatever they're told. But I have met people in this career that when you sit down with that next to them, before a word is said, it feels like there is a magnetic pressure of some kind of force pushing against you that feels evil. And like, I wouldn't say...
It's dark, it's hollow,
it's weird, it's
like
crazy.
emptying. It's like a void.
It's like you feel like you're sitting next to the devil or a demon. Like it's
so
crazy.
let's go on the flip side of that is the hero, the brave Jody O'Malley, Kyle Seraphin, Eric Cochran, Spencer Meads, these whistleblowers who actually do give up their homes, their lives. And what's Tim? What is your? Because I've got mine, but what is your message to those people, like the FBI agents who just go along? It's like, I got the pension, but to give that up, it is hard. I mean, it's no question. Materialistically speaking, maybe not spiritually.
I disagree, though. I think if someone came to me and said X million dollars for insert evil act, the answer is no. That doesn't matter. And I wonder what it is. I don't think it's hard.
Suffering, pain. These people do suffer. They do.
The FBI agents that are engaging in evil actions under the excuse that I don't want to lose my paycheck or whatever, all they're saying is it is easier for them to be evil than to be good. That's it. If someone came to you and said they'd give you $1 million to, like torture a dog, most people are going to say, how dare you?
Yeah.
In fact, most cops in this country will not accept a bribe over minor infractions. You go to other countries, they don't care. But then you look at someone like Dr. Fauci, offer him millions of dollars to torture dogs, and he'll say, you got it, no problem. And then he'll put flies on the face of... Well, they put bags over beagles' heads and then had starving gnats eat the faces while the dog was alive.
Yeah.
What sane person would be like, yes, I'll do that for any... So this is my point. If someone, if they say, a lot of these law enforcement officers who are bad, the reason why we see so many people confess is because they know they're evil. They know they're a component of evil, and they don't want to bring risk upon themselves. So when Trump is being targeted, I've met various people who work in the intelligence agencies. We actually have a lot of fans who are former or current FBI. In fact, we've had Kyle Seraphin. Am I getting his name right?
Yeah.
The FBI whistleblower.
Yes.
And what I hear from a lot of these people is that it is the same inside as it is outside. That it is a culture war. That there are many good people, many who even like Trump, but they know if they speak up, they'll be attacked, they'll be persecuted, they'll be fired, they'll be investigated, and they're scared to do it.
And that's the call to action, because you need to be fired and investigated, and that's what we're asking people to do, right? To sign
stand
up
up
for. Yeah.
Well, so all that is required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. And so the people that I meet, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I got to be honest. If you expect me to have respect for you after you just told me the institution is evil, but you participate in it, what's my reaction supposed to be to that? That I'm so sorry this is happening to you, or please stop being evil?
Yeah, you need to ask yourself, are you a good person or are you a bad person? And are you willing to deal with the larger energetic ramifications of this with the spiritual war for the rest of your existence?
What was it, the Milgram experiment? Was that what it was? Where they said electrocute the person, don't worry, it's fine?
Yep.
Was that Milgram? And I wonder, for a lot of these people in law enforcement, and I know there's a lot of good cops, like I said, most of them won't accept a bribe. I mean, there's scruples, there's fear. It's like, I do not want to do that. That's wrong. And those psychic barriers are good. But I really do wonder sometimes about a lot of these feds that if they were ordered to take a bag of puppies and throw it off a bridge, they'd probably just do it.
Well, the FBI agents in my apartment, I could see it in their faces. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I could see half of them were like, "What are we doing here?" I mean, I could just see it. It's just, but they're following orders. Historically, that doesn't work so well. I have hope because this is America. I feel like, well, Rome and all everyone's talking about this right now, and as we descend into chaos, I don't even know if I hope that we will, as a society, make it to the election. Every day, every week, it seems like there's another monumental, chaotic. But I think because we're Americans, I feel like there's a different ethos. There's a bravery. There's a frontiersman. There's a willingness. It's just that I see this. I was just going through the airport, Tim, last night, very late. TSA agent looks at my ID, and they look at me, look at my ID. The guy goes, "They haven't killed you yet, James?"
Oh my God.
That's what he said. That's what he said. And he goes, "Keep up the good work." And I'm like,
Why are you whispering?
"Why are you whispering?"
You coward.
I mean, but this is what happens. I mean, they haven't killed me yet? I mean,
I got that a couple times too, and I'm like, yeah, thanks. That's not very comforting, okay? You're not really helping me here.
I got the organization that I founded who blew $8 million. He took black cars. I mean, this is the spiritual war. It's within each and every one of us. It's literally a fight against human nature itself. That's what this is. It's a fight against the person in their heart. Am I going to appeal to the goodness in my heart? Like you just said, like you just articulated so eloquently. Am I going to do the right thing, even though it's going to result probably in suffering and toil and sacrifice in a materialistic sense? Or am I going to do the right thing? That's the fight.
Or the wrong thing and follow the demonic sociopaths.
What people need to understand, like this guy who whispers to you.
Whispered.
It's buddy. I'm not the target. You are.
I should have said that.
You see what people need to understand is going after James O'Keefe is very, very difficult. If they are to ban someone with millions of followers from a social media platform, they know they are inviting a massive PR backlash. And you got to be careful of even social martyrdom, like banning someone creates like this minor version of it where it's like, no, we rally around this person. They end up getting more subscribers. You ban someone off of YouTube or Twitter, they're going to add 50,000. If they have 1 million subscribers, they're going to add 50 to 100,000 paying members overnight, giving them substantially more money than they ever would have gotten. What people need to understand is that when Twitter started banning everybody, we heard the stories of high profile people. Oh, they banned Alex Jones. But I hope everyone realizes they banned 100,000 regular Americans before they got to Alex Jones. They are mowing through people who can't fight back first. So these people who are whispering like, hey, they're coming for you. Don't worry, I'm fine. Bro, they're not going to show up to my house. I have armed guards. The activists are going to show up to your house first. I'm trying to prevent that. But I need you to stand with me so that we can have this fight and then we can prevent these things from happening. But the stories we get of the people who are shot and killed, of the people whose homes are protested or attacked, these aren't high-profile individuals. In some instances, yes, of course. Tucker Carlson happened to Cassandra Fairbanks, my friend. But a lot of the stories we don't even hear about because a person with 100 followers who uses Twitter just to be involved and says, I'm not going to say anything. One day they wake up and a brick flies through their window. And then who do they have to ask for help? Yeah. Nobody.
Or their business is looted, or they get stabbed as they're walking down the street. And those things happen to so many individuals.
There's no question, though, that it's painful, okay? And I think that the moral of this story is that this actually did happen. I'm not making this up. This was last night, going through the airport. The guy actually said to me, and at first I'm thinking, this guy not like me. Sometimes people that don't like you, they'll look at you, but they'll never say a word because they don't want to acknowledge the other. The communists don't want to engage in conversation. But a fan, there'll always be that moment where they look at you and look at the ID, look at you, and they haven't killed you yet. And I was just so taken aback by that. But that was the right response. But then I thought that guy, he probably makes $65,000 a year. He has his apartment. Maybe he's married. And imagine what I'm asking him to give up. But there are people who are willing to give things up because there are some things more important in life than the mortgage. And there are people who are willing. We have 1,000 people.
How full does your belly need to be? I think this issue for me is, for one, I understand the fears of those who have children. A greater fear than anything. I told the story. Actually, the video might be coming out at some point today. Actually, I think it was 10 a.m. The story of Andre the rooster. I tweeted about this. Andre, it was a rooster, and a raccoon attacked his flock, and he sacrificed himself to save his hens. And it's a silly story. It's kind of funny, and I like using roosters as an example of the great sacrifice, because chickens are hilarious. It's just like this. It's silly to associate this bravery with an animal we associate with cowardice. But what I tweeted was, the woman whose rooster died, Andre, defending the hens, said that he was fearless. And I said, Andre was not fearless. Andre feared for his life. But there was something that he feared greater than death, and it was standing over the dead bodies of his family. And that is what motivates so many people to be involved in the fight. And so when we're talking earlier and you guys saying your heart's pounding out of your chest and you're terrified, I always understand I don't understand what people are like, oh, you're so fearless in doing these things. And I'm like, bro, when I used to cover conflict crisis, people would be like, haha, Tim's scared. I'd be like, are you nuts? People are shooting at each other. Of course I'm scared. If I went in there with completely feeling nothing, I'd probably die.
Yeah.
But it's overcoming the fear and bringing yourself to do the job that is important is that's courage.
And the community of people, because there are some days, Tim, even I'm like, this is
a lot.
Last week, what I went through with this, this is so complicated to explain, but 30, 40 lawyers. I have no indemnification. I still have to pay my lawyers in the FBI case. I have to pay the legal bills of all the journalists I've ever worked with, and the company I founded is suing me. I mean, think about
how many lawsuits are you dealing with?
That's Kafka-esque. So many. I've been sued so many times, and I'm now indemnifying I'm having to provide for people while the organization I founded is trying to kill me. While my former board member wants me to commit suicide, while the government's trying to attack me, I'm under criminal investigation. I'm probed in all these different ways. I mean, and I just think some days this is really hard. This is really difficult. And sometimes the only thing you do when you're struggling is you have to surround yourself with like-minded people who are also willing, a community of people. That's the only way. You have to build a community of people who are willing, and you have to be brothers, the band of brothers, to borrow the Shakespearean analogy.
James, you could just stop right now. You'll be rich for the rest of your life, and you can go on your sailboat, and you can sit back and sail the beautiful oceans. Why resist? Why be a challenge to these individuals? I ask that not seriously, because I think a lot of people really don't understand that for all of us. A lot of people do understand. I'm not saying you don't understand. I'm saying there's some people who just don't get it. It would be so much easier if, I work 16 hours a day, basically. From sun up to sundown, I'm working. And if I'm not working, it's in between because I'm eating and exercising or something. And, if I got rid of all of this and just did private consulting, I would be rich and I'd live a life of comfort and leisure with no conflict and not a care in the world because I'm smart enough to survive on my own. But instead, I choose to do some of the most strenuous and stressful work imaginable, engaging in some of the most dangerous topics. And it's, I forgot who said it, better to be a fisherman than meddle in the affairs of men or something like that. We actively choose what is hard but what is right when we could have easily chosen luxury and leisure. And so many people do. So many celebrities privately. Oh, I can't tell you. Oh, the celebrities that I've met who are like, I'm voting for Trump. And then I'm like, maybe you should tweet that right now. Oh, no way, man.
Lose my money and fame and fortune. Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what? Look, I'll accept that at the very least you are doing something you think is good in voting for Trump. But if every one of these individuals, so many musicians, so many actors who, oh man, it's hilarious.
I think it comes down, you have to be an honest person, don't you? Because if you're honest with yourself, you say, why don't you do that? If it's a choiceless choice. It's not like I think about that and weigh it. I'm like, well, gee, I could do. I don't even think that calculus would ever enter my mind. I do enjoy going on my boat once in a while just to get away from things for a day. But I don't even think that I've thought about it in that calculation. I think it comes down to transparency and honesty, finding people who are sincere and honest. Because if you're honest with yourself if you're an honest human being, I mean really honest, I could never be those people that you just mentioned. I'm a famous actor or whatever it is, but I'm not going to say what I believe.
I wouldn't.
How could you be that way? For me, I don't know how to do that.
I know. I agree.
And neither do you. Neither do you, and neither do you. So the fact that they're doing that is wrong. They're lying by omission at the least.
And they're allowing the system to get away with hurting so many innocent human beings with their silence.
I hate to be Debbie Downer, I guess, but what you were saying earlier on in the show, James, about how the nature of humans and there's so much darkness. Right now, we're watching this fight with Matt Gaetz and the GOP establishment. And they want to expel him. They're accusing him of these ridiculous and insane issues of impropriety and ethics violations. And then you get these other members of Congress who just fall in line behind Kevin McCarthy and try to justify why it's a good thing. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not in your system. I am not beholden to the pressures of Congress and political leadership. I'm not worried about re-election. There is nothing that will require me to say Kevin McCarthy should be Speaker. Why? It's the same old machine that Americans hate, the corrupt system of Congress, and there's only a small handful of Republicans who are actually willing to step up and say, screw off with this, and Matt Gaetz is basically it. When I see Thomas Massie, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene get behind the establishment maneuver, that's it, the path of least resistance. They're thinking, I'd imagine, and I'll talk to them about it because I do like them, but I'm imagining they're saying something like, if all I can do is get some things done while I'm here, I might as well do it, because if I resist, I'll get removed and get nothing done. And I'm kind of like, wow, that is the losingest strategy I've ever heard. And I've heard it over and over and over again my whole life. People who say, you get into Congress, you want to do all these big things, and then you realize you're up against this machine. If you fight them, they'll kick you out and get somebody else. So it's best to just get your incremental change. And I'm like, you're not getting incremental change. You're getting 99 steps towards evil so you can try and get one step towards good. Then the next person who comes in erases your one step 99 times over.
That's right. That's why solutions are outside of politics. It's all about the truth. It's about enlightening people and revelation and revealing what's happening. I think Congress is in a state of absolute dysfunction, and there is no hope in politics. It's the people. It's educating the people. I don't know what the solution is with that. It's impossible to govern.
I've been playing poker quite a bit, so I've got all the poker analogies, but there's lessons in the things that I do in my life from skateboarding and poker. And the way I explain it to people is, if you're looking at this battle between Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy, what you have here is Thomas Massie. Well, actually, I think Massie truly believes, and he's actually like adamant about.
I think Massie is a good guy.
He is, but he's very defensive of McCarthy. I think he's viewing this as is a good thing with McCarthy. I don't see him for the most part as someone who's like selling out their values because they're scared. But there are other people who have voted for McCarthy. And these are the kind of players in a poker table who probably have a really, really good hand, probably could win, but fold because they're scared anyway. And then Matt Gaetz is the guy his hand is okay, and he shoves all his chips right in the middle of the table and says, let's play. How scared are you? And the machine got scared and backed down and folded to him. You have to be willing to take the risks like the founding fathers did. The founding fathers of this country thought we would lose. They thought that if we went to war with the crown for independence, we would lose and be crushed. And they said, let's do it. And fortunately for us, the French intervened, giving us a massive advantage and destabilized, and because they were at war with Britain. But the attitude there was, you know what? I might lose. But let's see how much you're willing to lose. How much do you care? And the funny thing is, when I ask my British friends about the American Revolution, they're like, it's a footnote in our history, dude. Like, our history goes back 1,000+ years. We don't care about this one small period for one of our colonies. Our country is here, and we had colonies all over the world. You are one of them.
The difference is the difference now, Tim, is did you see the image of Letitia James, the Attorney General, staring at Trump in the courtroom? Did you happen to see that this week?
Yeah, I did.
There's this profound video, I think it was Fox carrying it.
Or the judge's face or eyes, too.
And turn the volume, don't turn the volume on because they're doing a newscast there. But Letitia James in the courtroom with Donald Trump, and she's the Attorney General of New York. There's an image of her, but there's a video of it somewhere. I posted, if you go to my Twitter feed and scroll down a couple tweets, you'll see the video that I quote tweeted. And I just want you to look at Letitia James's face, the Attorney General of New York. Just scroll down a few. Keep going. There it is.
This one?
Okay, make that
Let
large.
me pull this up. All right.
There's Trump. I don't think he had to be there, but it was optically good for him to be there. This is the clown judge. We all know the clown judge, but let's take a look at the attorney general. There she's sitting in the second row, about 10 seconds in there. And they get the photographers in the courtroom. There's Trump in the front row. And there, look at Letitia. Keep going. Look at her in the second row there.
Just staring at him?
Keep going. Sitting behind. It's going to have to... There she is. Look at the way she looks at him. Look at that. I mean, that is the chief law enforcement officer of the state of New York. This is the difference between the founding of the country and now. In a courtroom, just ran on a campaign, find me the man and I'll show you the crime. I'm going to make him famous. And I mean, the problem with this image, such an amazing image, is that half the people look at this like me and be outraged at the absurdity of quote unquote, and the other will be enthralled. This is great.
Yeah.
And how do you govern? There is no, how do you govern a country? You talk about Gates and McCarthy. That dichotomy is the challenge in America. How do you govern a country?
This is why there are so many grains of sand in the Civil War heap. And there are a lot of people who have been consistently saying for a long time, I'm wrong. I don't care. Like, I can be wrong. That's fine. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's fine. But I'm just going to say right now, if I came to you 6 months ago, after everything you've seen with the indictments, I think 6 months ago he wasn't indicted yet. When did he get it? He got it a couple months ago. But if I came to you 6 months ago and said, a judge will summarily rule that Trump's properties are worth 1/10 of what they're actually worth, or 1/20th, and that he committed fraud without a trial, without hearing evidence, would you believe me? Would you believe me if I said right now what they're going to do, and I could be wrong about this, I'm just saying, here's something I see. They've already stated in this trial that Donald Trump committed fraud. The judge banged the gavel without a trial, with no hearing.
She ran for office in New York on the premise that she would get him.
Yep.
They did. The judge rejected the evidence of the lenders saying the properties are worth what they're worth, and the judge said, no, they're not. So here's what happens next. What they're doing now in this hearing is they've already determined summarily that Trump committed fraud. Now they're trying to determine whether or not Trump's organization falsified documents. But if the court's premise is that a $500 million property is only worth $50 million, any document Trump's organization created that says $500 million is thereby falsified. Then, when the judge bangs the gavel and says, see, we heard the evidence, this proves it, Trump, you now owe the state of New York $250 million. That $500 million building you have, it's actually worth $5. You now owe us $245 million and we've seized your building. I'm telling people they've arrested Trump's lawyers. They've sanctioned Trump's lawyers, other lawyers in other states, to the tunes of millions of dollars. They've already summarily declared he committed fraud and are arguing his properties are worth a fraction of their value, and they're demanding $250 million from him. The next move is the government of New York will seize Trump's buildings and properties, likely auction them off to their allies. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. But you say, how do we govern? I don't think there's a government when the federal government is in on it, attacking the former president. The FBI has said Trump supporters are terrorists, all of them. Every single one of Trump's followers.
They're going to do it. That's the message to the TSA agent. See that right over there? See that what they're doing? That's what they're going to do to you. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do to people they don't agree with. So I think our politics are completely broken. Obviously, we're beyond that.
Look at Staten Island. The locals of Staten Island protested that they're bringing in non-citizens under police protection, and the police arrested the residents. They've brought in people who are not from your home and not even a citizen of your country, and then arrested you for having a problem with it. They've offered these people free money, free travel, special legal protections and work permits, and then arrested you when you said, hey, wait a minute. I'm sorry, but you're being occupied in New York.
I think that the right and the left, it's happening on the right too. They want this political coercion. Go after them because they're them, as opposed to because they've done something illegal. Although you can find find me the man, I'll show you the crime, sort of.
Yeah.
But this is the fight. To get back to the overarching theme of OMG and my future is the the First Amendment is so important in this country. Showing people what's happening is, but I think increasingly people just want political coercion. They want to put, here's a good way of saying this, right? If I go to rural Michigan and I say, how many of you people want AOC in jail? The majority, I want her in jail. And if I go to Queens, New York, and I say, how many of you people want, James O'Keefe in jail? The majority want people in jail. So everyone wants to jail each other. What's the solution to that?
I think that the cultural divide and the divide of worldviews has grown too great for there to be.
We're beyond the event horizon. Now they're starting to seize property and
arrest lawyers. They've started.
You work for Trump, you will be indicted, and that might be to say if you work with James O'Keefe, you might be indicted, and then it becomes, how. Where is this headed? I'm not in the prediction business, but I'm curious, Tim. How do you solve that? There needs to be a detente in this country somehow.
I think if you look at the positions of the left, they are unreasonable, they are psychotic, destructive, and evil. The right has consistently tried being reasonable, not always, but they keep trying to play this slow down their Democrats. I think our best course of action is if Trump gets elected, the first thing before anyone thinks of anything else is let's vote for Trump and cross our fingers that he begins firing people, brings in an AG, we get some convictions and arrests. And
how does Trump trust anybody around him?
I'm sure he doesn't.
When he goes to the White House.
But until we say anything else, we have an opportunity with Trump leading in the polls, with major cultural victories, with the failures of Bud Light, Target, wokeness failing. Even BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are getting scared of saying ESG now because the cultural tides are shifting. What we're seeing here with these actions taken by Democrats in New York is panic, fear, and desperation. They couldn't stop Trump, so they're resorting to illegal and unconstitutional tactics, which I think is actually going to destroy their efforts. Thrashing about violently. You go to a crowd of people and start screaming at the top of your lungs, the end is nigh, the end is nigh. No one's going to listen to you, even if the end is nigh. Mm-hmm. All you do is destroy your credibility. So right now, it is worrying, and there are grains of sand in the Civil War heap, but I think right now, we are looking at
When you say grains of sand, what is in the Civil War? What do you mean?
So the old question: how many grains of sand make a heap, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you take a grain of sand and drop it on a table, do you have a heap of sand? Of course not. 2 grains of sand? Of course not. At what point does that sand become what you would describe as a heap? We don't really know. It's a nebulous number.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Each grain of sand is something happening. We keep adding these things to the mix. Someone got shot in the street. Someone tried to burn down the White House. Someone,
I see.
And then eventually you have all of these things piled up, and we say,
but having been through this particular kind of psychological carnage, having been sued 30 times and raided and arrested, federal jail and arraigned, I can tell you that I don't know, and I'm speaking aloud for your audience because you got some smart people watching. I don't know how you solve it. Trump's a billionaire, or at least close to it, and his legal bills are, I don't know what they're, 60 million, 100 million. Lawyers, what I've learned, lawyers are becoming millionaires off of the backs of absolute injustice and tragedy. And this sort of thing, as the administrative state grows, Tim, and they just have a bunch of regulators just going after everyone, lawyers are going to become millionaires. And again, it goes back to that money. Give me that money. I want that money. These are not bad people. These are lawyers billing $600,000, $800,000 an hour. It's one of the great ironies of my life is I took black car to go to the meeting. These guys take private jets to represent me, Yeah. So I don't know how we solve for the legal issue.
I don't think it's going to be done politically. I think it has to be done socially, economically, culturally. I think people need to know about what's the thing when you go to court, when you're a jury, you get to have jury nullification. I think a lot of people need to understand what that is. I think
these juries in New York, dude, they don't care.
I don't think voting is going to get us out of here. I think we need something else. I think we need decentralization.
That's why the Gates McCarthy thing. It's like we need a journalistic. The solution is
citizen journalism, decentralization, a lot of small, instead of just one sword, instead of one head coming out, it should be paper cuts.
You're missing the point. The only reason Trump is winning right now is because of everything you're describing, because of the cultural victories, because of the media, because of the journalism. More and more people are waking up, and the desperation from New York, it's freaking people out. Trying to seize Trump's properties.
Well, it's freaking half of the people out. But actually, the majority of New Yorkers.
Yes, in an urban liberal bastion.
In an urban
But
areas.
I'm in Washington, D.C., hanging out with what is a dense liberal, extremely, and I'm hearing regular people saying it's freaking them out.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a guy last week. I mentioned this. He said he hates Trump, but they should not be doing what they're doing to him. It's freaking him out. I think this is stress on regular people who don't want conflict, and it's going to cause them to bow out from voting for Democrats and just back away, which gives Trump an edge. But what I'm saying is, all of the cultural victories we have, the founding fathers, what did they do for 10 years before the revolution? They were leafleting, they were pamphleting, they were writing books, they were sharing ideas. It's leading to a cultural shift, which then brings in a Donald Trump, whom is not going to be perfect. Maybe doesn't get everything we need done, but I do think that turns things around a little bit on the political side. This is where if we start getting, if the corporate media fails, and they're failing, they're losing audience, and they're fizzling out in a lot of ways. They're making ground.
How do you put the toothpaste back in the tube with all these indictments and attorney generals?
Trump gets elected. He brings on an AG. We get special prosecutors and investigations.
I see.
We start getting indictments for the lies and manipulations. Constitutional lawyers in the Supreme Court shut down immediately what New York is doing. Censures, disbars these people, and then we start bringing in new people. That's a long, long process, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Those are political solutions, which are part of it.
But are only possible because we are shifting culture. So we must always continue the cultural battles, building a parallel economy, spreading the message, and creating, distributing the ideas among people of what is right and what should be, and it results in the evil losing cultural authority, and then politics comes after that. But with that being said, we have a lot more to talk about later tonight in Miami at the event where James will be joining us. So good conversation. I think we'll wrap it up here as we're getting a little late. Did you have any final thoughts, or do you want to shout anything out?
I mean, yeah, my plug is for O'Keefe Academy. Master classes are live on our website. You can learn how to be a citizen journalist. And next week we have a webinar, a paid webinar. We're going to start teaching people, much like Luke has done in his career. We do different things, but we're both citizen journalists. I want to teach and educate and empower people to do the things that I've done at OMG. So we're going to be doing that next week, and I look forward to tonight. Tim, what is exactly the theme of tonight? What are we talking about?
We'll find out.
I mean, it's Timcast IRL live on stage.
Just live on stage. Who's there?
So it's going to be on stage predominantly for the main event will be us three plus Patrick, Bet David, and Matt Gaetz.
Any themes? Any particular issues?
I think, considering what Matt Gaetz has just pulled off in Congress, which is historic, the first speaker to be removed, and the ongoing battle, I think that'll be a large portion of the conversation.
Nothing is planned, so we'll just have a conversation. We'll see where it
like
goes.
That's good. Like we normally do for IRL.
But maybe we could collaborate on helping
I
teach
would
people
love
citizen
that.
journalism.
I heard that you gave out press badges at some point to your.
People who sign up for Change Media University get press passes.
I would like
as
to.
well.
I would like
so
to
we could collaborate.
With
We could work in many different ways. What's the website for your
O'KeefeMediaGroup.com. Masterclasses are live. Next week is our first webinar, and we're going to be building out basically a journalism school for what I do.
Absolutely, and let's talk more about that, because I think that's something that I did before, and I think we should do it as well. I personally do not think one man will save you. I think we need a decentralized effort. That's why I also started Change Media University, teaching people how to do everything that I'm doing: media, marketing, videos, editing, getting into events, confronting politicians, 30 plus videos, courses, homework, you name it, we got it. Change Media University is available for members of LukeUnfiltered.com. We're also doing a members only meetup this Sunday, 4 p.m. for members of LukeUnfiltered.com. That's the main way to support me, main way to talk to me, get into a forum, and work with me one-on-one. LukeUnfiltered.com. See you there.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. James, thanks for coming. This has been an awesome conversation.
Great.
And tonight's going to be wild. Next up, we've got our Elite Members Meetup. And then 6 p.m., the show begins in Miami. It's going to be live on timcast.com, members only. And there's a variety of reasons we do it. Full transparency. We obviously want more members because members are how we operate, how we do the whole thing. We can't, just do everything for free all the time, but there's a blend of the ad model and then the membership model. And, initially we wanted to do it just straight live. There's also the concern that there could be saboteurs and extremists, which could disrupt and actually put an end to the show. So we were like, we're going to take it to timcast.com. And so that'll be on the front page, probably around 6 or 7 p.m. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.